insulting to our seniors and any member of Congress would excuse away blatant crimes against American citizens is somehow helpful to the fiscal future of these programs. I greatly appreciate the work that the House Judiciary Committee has done to bring forward what I believe are targeted fixes to strengthen penalties and deter illegal immigration in those trafficking people across our borders. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Chair thanks the gentleman. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
I thank my friend from Texas. I thank the witnesses for being here. I don't want to cover stuff that's already been covered, and I apologize for flight getting here as fast as I could. But I think, Mr. McClintock, a question for you about the 4 bills that are before us. We're dealing here with respect to all 4 of them with individuals who are present in the United States by virtue of having come here without papers. Is that correct? No? Is it, what is the classification in all 4 bills of the people we're dealing with?
It applies to both legal and illegal immigrants in many of the bills. And just very simple reasoning, and that is, if you're a guest in this country, we ask that you obey our laws. And if you are not going to obey our laws, we need to show you the door.
We're dealing with non-citizens in all 4?
Correct.
Are we dealing with LPRs in each or all of the 4?
Yeah.
Legal permanent residents?
So. Yeah, I believe so, yes.
But they've been given that status by virtue of our efforts as a country to say you can come here.
They are guests in this country.
Provided you would follow the laws of this country, correct? Are the people that we're dealing with here with respect to all 4 of these bills, however, in significant numbers, we're dealing with a lot of people who are here illegally?
Of course,
Here,
well, especially
right.
for example, the border chases that are imperiling lives and killing law enforcement officers.
And in most cases, with respect to Social Security fraud.
Oh, yes.
Right, by definition.
Yeah, exactly.
So to be clear for the people watching at home, we are moving legislation to try to deal with, in some cases, legal permanent residents or people who are here who have been given legal status by virtue of our desire to be here. But in many cases, dealing with people who are here illegally.
As a practical matter, though, we need to make the distinction of the legal immigrant who's come here and obeyed all of our laws is an exemplary citizen. You'll find that they commit far fewer crimes per capita than American citizens do. These are the folks who have obeyed all of our laws. The Democrats love to compare them and confuse them with illegal immigrants whose very first act entering this country is a misdemeanor of a federal crime. And so it shouldn't surprise us that as a practical matter, these laws will apply overwhelmingly to those illegally in this country who have already demonstrated a disdain and disrespect for our laws.
But to put a finer point on it for the people back home watching this, we're talking about individuals who have been given a status to be in the United States, who have then carried out some action that we believe would require either deportation, inadmissibility, whatever is in the particular statute that we're proposing, or in the lion's share of the numbers, we're talking about people who came here evading our laws, ignoring our laws to come here, whether it's across the Rio Grande or otherwise, overstaying your visas, right? You came here, violated our laws, overstayed your visas, whatever it is. And you have, in this one case, committed Social Security fraud. In another case, whether you're here with legal status or came here illegally, you're engaged in support or otherwise engaged with helping Hamas in this one particular instance. Or perhaps you have been convicted of DUIs and obviously engaging in high-speed chases with respect to the danger posed to Border Patrol and otherwise. So again, just for clarification, this is what we're talking about here. When the average, I'll finish this, then I'll leave it open for the question. When the average person that I represent, if I ask the average person that I represent in the 21st District of Texas in Central Texas, do you think that any of the individuals, any one individual who came here in violation of our laws, whether they felt they had a reasonable claim to some coverage for asylum or some basis for parole or anything else, but they came here. Most people in my district, I don't know how your people in your district feel, would say that individual should be removed immediately. That individual should not be present in the United States at all. But here we're talking about, at least for that class of individuals, we're talking about, again, consequences for Social Security frauds. In other words, we're layering on something on top of that which most average Americans would say we should be removing, deporting, not having them in the United States at all. And then we're coming in and saying on top of that, oh, by the way, I mean, if you commit Social Security fraud, you really shouldn't be here. I mean, I'm just trying to put in perspective kind of the absurdity of the spectrum on which we find ourselves.
Well,
I wonder if the gentleman might comment.
well, it's pretty simple, actually. These bills are applying to drunk drivers, ID thieves, Hamas operatives, exactly the same provisions that we already apply for visa overstays, violating of non-immigrant status or condition of entry, smuggling aliens, committing a marriage fraud, being a drug user or a drug addict, falsely claiming U.S. citizenship, engaging in espionage. We're simply applying the same provisions that apply to aliens who have violated those laws to drunk drivers, ID thieves, and terrorists. I don't think that's too much to ask, but the Democrats do, and that tells us a great deal about the attitudes of the parties on this issue.
So we've got 4 bills here. High-speed chases with respect to Border Patrol agents, protecting ourselves from DUIs, i.e. people who are committing acts of driving under influence or have committed such an act, engaging in Social Security fraud, a fairly significant problem for people if you take someone's identity and steal their hardworking contributions to Social Security. And then no benefits, i.e. you shouldn't be here if you're, I don't know, cavorting with terrorists like Hamas, who endanger the American people and endanger our friends in Israel. So that's the position that we're laying forward in these 4 measures. Is that correct? I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Are there any other members that have questions for this panel? If not, thank you very much for appearing before us today, and the witnesses are excused.
Jerry? Always a pleasure, it truly is.
The chair would invite to the witness table Representative Garcia and Representative Jackson Lee for amendments. Very well. Welcome to the Rules Committee. We will take testimony on all of the amendments that you have to offer, and then we may have questions afterwards. So, Ms. Jackson Lee, in seniority, let's start with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me start off by indicating that the amendment that I have is on HR 5585. And let me thank the Rules Committee for your courtesies throughout the year for listening to the concerns of members to make legislation better. And that is the intent that we have today, is to make legislation better and to, in fact, realize that with all the discussions that I heard as I was listening here, we would do well to have collaborative work, just as they're doing in the United States Senate, to produce a bill that should draw the support of all of us who are supportive of Americans. I wanted to bring up the title of a bill filed I'll do that as I filed, that was the Save America Comprehensive Immigration Bill, filed in 2007. I filed it and have been filing this bill repeatedly. And the concept that I want to focus on, Mr. Chairman, is that it mentions comprehensive. And that is what we have in these series of bills. It is not a comprehensive approach, it is piece by piece. And you will see us try to make amends for things that we have agreed to as Republicans and Democrats. But I want to go back to what I wanted to start with, which is to offer my deepest sympathy again to the family of Border Patrol agent Raul Gonzalez, a Texan, for his loss, the loss of his life in the line of duty. I want to clearly make that known to all of us, that we mourn for his passing and we recognize the service of all of them. But as we go back to trying to make a difference in this country, we would make a difference by doing it comprehensively and listening to people who, one, are in states on the border who have a different and real perspective, and also have been engaged in this process for a long time. So Chairman Cole, Ranking Member McGovern, and members of the committee, thank you again for this opportunity to speak in support of my amendment to HR 5585. My amendment would make three changes. First, my amendment makes a technical change to mirror language that appears in existing federal criminal statute. I'm not reinventing the wheel, which prohibits the commission of various offenses such as assault, murder, and manslaughter perpetrated against officers and employees of the United States and foreign officials while engaged in the performance of their official duties. As currently written, HR 5585 would require that the government prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the pursuing Border Patrol agent had the legal authority to engage in the underlying pursuit. In other words, the fact finder would have to determine whether the agent was abiding by laws and regulations in effect at the time of the pursuit. I want to make it better and indicate simply that it was in the performance of his or her official duties. In other words, we wouldn't have that extra burden. My amendment would simply require that the government prove that the Border Patrol agent was within their duties, meaning within the scope of the agent's employment. Second, my amendment would eliminate the minimum mandatory penalties in the bill, which while maintaining the maximum penalties. To make it very clear, Republicans and Democrats over the years have supported the removing of mandatory minimums. We have had a whole contingent of evangelicals who stood alongside of us and said that mandatory minimums did not fit the four corners of the law or the penalties that should be rendered. Like many of my colleagues, I have opposed mandatory minimum penalties, particularly because of the devastating impact these sentencing schemes have inflicted on many Americans, including those who are communities of color. But I think the singular point to know is that it has been people from both parties over the years. And why are we separating now? Mandatory minimum sentences contributed to the mass incarceration of generations of Americans and are the primary reason that the United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world. Mandatory minimums have been studied extensively and been found to distort rational sentencing systems, discriminate against minorities, waste billions of taxpayer dollars, and quite often violate common sense while failing to reduce crime. Brain trusts like the Rand Commission have concluded that mandatory minimum sentences are less effective than discretionary sentencing and far more costly. And so support comes from the Families Against Mandatory Minimums, supported also by evangelicals, the American Bar Association, the Judicial Conference of the United States, and many other organizations. And the Judicial Conference of the United States has reiterated to this body its opposition to mandatory minimum sentencing schemes more than a dozen times, noting these types of penalties severely distort and damage federal sentencing, undermine the U.S. sentencing guidelines mandated by this very Congress to promote fairness and proportionality in federal sentencing and destroy equity and honesty in sentencing, and encouraging coercive charging practices. Finally, my amendment would add an additional data point to the annual report. The immigration status of individuals charged with an offense under the new code section. In the end, the changes proposed in my amendment are narrowly tailored to address glaring deficiencies and do not change the overall mission of this bill. This is when we work together. My amendment considers the many criticisms of mandatory minimum penalties while allowing a judge's discretion to impose informed sentencing to satisfy the purposes and goals of federal sentencing. So I thank the committee again for the opportunity to testify, but more importantly, prevent, I think, very instructive changes to this legislation and changes that have been expressed by Republicans and Democrats over the years in the criminal justice system. And I remind us collectively on the bills that we have before us that we are in many instances denying due process. And I don't know if we want to pass bills out of the United States Congress that denies due process, even in the immigration footprint. So let me thank you, and I yield back. Thank you.
Representative Garcia, you're recognized for your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for allowing me to speak today on my amendment to HR 6678. My amendment is the Dream and Promise Act. This is a real bipartisan solution for our immigration system, which is broken. Our role as lawmakers is a special one. We are empowered by the Constitution to make laws which are necessary and proper to serve the nation as it changes in whatever form that may be. When issues arise across the country, we must find creative, common sense ways to fix them. Today, our country is home to dreamers, children who were brought to the United States by their parents and grew up here. In their heart, in their mind, and in their soul, they are Americans, except on paper. They only know America is their home. They contribute to society as taxpayers, small business owners, scholars, educators, and aspiring public servants. And during the COVID pandemic, they stepped up as essential workers. They served as doctors, nurses, first responders, and everything that you can imagine to keep our communities healthy and safe. Yet they remain at risk of losing everything after living in this country for their whole life. They are in legal limbo. No family should be separated. By finding common ground and working together to fix our immigration system, Congress can provide a pathway to citizenship for dreamers and immigrant families. Mr. Chairman, make no mistake, this is not a partisan issue. Over 70% of Americans favor a law providing permanent legal status to dreamers. Over 70%. I dare say we don't have that kind of popularity on any other issue we face here in Congress. 70% of Americans want dreamers to be citizens. This is a real solution. This is necessary and proper as contemplated by the Constitution. I'm proud to champion HR 16, the bipartisan American Dream and Promise Act of 2023, with the support of a diverse bipartisan group of co-leads, including Representatives Chavez de Rimer, Duarte Salazar, and Commissioner Gonzalez Colon. Compared with similar bills, this bill stands out for its narrow focus with narrow language. It focuses solely on finalizing the simple, legal, and safe pathway to citizenship for those cast into legal limbo because of Congress's own inaction. This is a pragmatic solution which will have a life-changing effect on every district in the nation. Chairman Cole, you have 6,000 dreamers in your state. And as I'm sure Mr. Roy and Mr. Burgess know, if DACA ends in Texas, we would lose 5,000 workers every single month over 2 years, many of them in healthcare, public safety, and teaching positions. So again, this impacts us all. And take it from me, I was born and raised in South Texas, about an hour away from the border. I recognize the importance of securing our borders to protect the integrity of our nation. Passing the Dream and Promise Act of 2023 will alleviate the strain on our immigration enforcement agencies, allowing them to focus their resources on addressing legitimate security concerns and keeping our country safe, while also acknowledging our responsibility to treat individuals seeking refuge with dignity and respect. Congress serves as their only hope for relief. So it is necessary and proper. We need to find a permanent solution so they can focus on raising the next generation of doctors, teachers, and leaders in this country. This bill passed the House in March 2021 in the last Congress, as well as in June of 2019 in the 116th Congress. With your help, I look forward to getting this bill passed in the House again and get it signed into law. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I reserve.
Thank the gentlelady for her testimony. I have no questions. On to the vice chair. And no questions. Gentlelady from Pennsylvania, have any questions? Gentleman from Pennsylvania?
I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady from New Mexico? Without objection. Gentlelady, yield back. Thank you very much. Gentleman from South Carolina is recognized for any questions. Gentleman from New York. Thank you very much. We want to thank both of you for your testimony, and thanks for coming to the Rules Committee, and our witnesses are excused. Thank you. Is there anyone else seeking to testify on HR 5585, HR 6678, HR 6679, or HR 6976? Seeing none, this closes the hearing portion. The chair will now be in a receipt of a motion from the gentleman from Texas, Dr. Burgess.
Mr. Chairman, I move the committee grant HR 5585, the Agent Raul Gonzalez Officer Safety Act, a structured rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule provides for 1 hour of general debate, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Judiciary or their respective designees. The rule provides an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of the Rules Committee print 118-21 shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions in the bill as amended. The rule makes in order only those amendments printed in Part A of the Rules Committee report. Each amendment shall be considered only in the order printed. In the report may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, shall not be subject to a demand for the division of the question. The rule waives all points of order against the amendments printed in Part A of the report. The rule provides one motion to recommit. The rule further provides for the consideration of HR 6678, the Consequences for Social Security Fraud Act, under a structured rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule provides that an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of the Rules Committee print 118-23 shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions in the bill as amended. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on the Judiciary or their respective designees. The rule makes in order only the amendment printed in Part B of the Rules Committee report. Each amendment shall be considered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question. The rule waives all points of order against the amendment printed in Part B of the report. The rule provides one motion to recommit. The rule further provides for consideration of HR 6679, the No Immigration Benefits for Hamas Terrorists Act, under a structured rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The bill provides that an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of the Rules Committee print 118-24 shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions in the bill as amended. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Judiciary or their respective designees. The rule makes in order only the amendment printed in Part C of the Rules Committee report. Each amendment shall be considered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable only for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question. The rule waives all points of order against amendment printed in Part C of the report. The rule provides 1 motion to recommit. The rule further provides for the consideration of HR 6976, the Protect Our Communities from DUIs Act, under a structured rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule provides that an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the Rules Committee print 118-22 shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions of the bill as amended. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Judiciary or their respective designees. The rule makes in order only the amendment printed in Part D of the Rules Committee report. Each amendment shall be considered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall not be debatable for the time specified in the report, shall be debated for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, shall not be subject to demand for division of the question. The rule waives all points of order against the amendment printed in Part D of the report. Finally, the rule provides 1 motion to recommit.
Thank you very much. You've now heard the motion. Is there any discussion or amendment to the rule?
Yes, Mr.
The
Chairman.
lady from Pennsylvania is recognized.
Thank you. I have an amendment to the rule. I move the committee making order amendment number 4 to HR 5585 and amendment number 3 to HR 6678 offered by Representatives Escobar and Correa respectively. Mr. Chair, these amendments would bring HR 5585 and HR 6678 more in line with current law and the rule of law by requiring an individual to be convicted of a crime before rendering the individual deportable. Apart from a few exceptions, the grounds for deportation require a criminal conviction to make a non-citizen deportable. However, neither of these bills require an individual to be convicted or even charged with a crime, violating some bedrock principles of fairness and due process. And given what we've seen with respect to information exchange and knowledge with respect to what folks under duress situations are sometimes informed about their rights or lack thereof, I think it's really important that these amendments be made. So I urge a yes vote on my motion, and I yield back.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Roll call has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Burgess.
Burgess votes no.
Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Reschenthaler. Mr. Reschenthaler, no. Mrs. Fishbach.
No.
Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Massey. Mr. Norman. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. McGovern.
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon.
Aye.
Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse. Ms. Ledger Fernandez. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Mr. Chairman.
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
Clerk will report the total.
3 yeas, 7 nays.
Noes have it. The amendment's not agreed to it. No further amendments. Gentlelady from New Mexico is recognized.
The American Dream and Promise Act that creates a pathway to citizenship for eligible seniors, TPS, and DPT holders. Let's remember who the dreamers are. These are the children who were brought. Let's remember who the dreamers are. These are the children who were brought to the United States and have gone to school with our children, who have gone on to earn degrees and participate in our economy in an incredible, meaningful way. Each of us around this dais knows Dreamers, I am sure. We know that they work in our states and they contribute to the economy and vibrancy of our economy. Indeed, they have contributed $27.9 billion in wages. They have paid in $2.1 billion in Social Security taxes, even though they do not have the ability to draw down Social Security. Americans support the Dream and Promise Act. 70% of Americans would like us to get this done. Let us show the courage and put it on the House floor so that our members can vote on whether they support our Dreamers or not. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, gentlelady. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. No. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Roll call has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Burgess.
Burgess votes no.
Mr. Burgess, no. Mr. Reschenthaler. Mr. Reschenthaler, no. Mrs. Fishbach. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Massey. Mr. Norman. Mr. Norman, no. Mr. Roy. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy. Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. McGovern. Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse.
Let me do something.
Ms. Ledger Fernandez.
I'm gonna be in and out
Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Mr.
a little
Chairman.
bit.
No.
Mr. Chairman, no.
But yes, they pay Social Security because they steal Social Security
Noes
numbers.
have it. The amendment's been
Um,
agreed to.
I had it happen to me years ago when I was trying to do
Hearing,
loan
no
for something. I
request
can't
for
remember whether it
further
wasn't a
amendments.
house, it was something
Question
else.
on the motion to repeal.
Um,
All those in
and they
favor
had all my
signify by
credit
saying
underneath
aye.
some dude where I never
Those
lived,
opposed say no.
who
Opinion of the
was
chair, the noes
not
have it.
named anything that
Roll
could
call
be
vote.
considered
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Burgess.
close to my
Mr.
name.
Burgess, aye. Mr.
And it
Reschenthaler.
took me a while to
Mr.
get that
Reschenthaler,
unfucked.
aye. Mrs. Fishbach. Mrs. Fishbach, aye. Mr. Massey. Mr. Norman.
I've worked
Mr.
with
Norman?
so-called
Mr. Roy?
dreamers, people
Mr. Roy?
who were brought here by their
Mr. Houchin?
parents
Aye. Mr. Langworthy?
illegally. They're
Mr. Langworthy?
fucking
Aye.
outstanding
Mr.
people.
McGovern? No.
I will
McGovern?
trade them for any fucking leftist
Scanlon?
in the
No.
United
Mr.
States.
Hughes?
I say we do like an NFL combine or something where we recruit them, we send our leftists to wherever the fuck their parents came from, and we keep them here. 'Cause they're outstanding fucking people. But the other people coming over, MS-13, the cartels, fucking Hamas, all these terrorist organizations, and they just let them walk across, claim asylum, all they're here. It's mind-boggling to me. So I'm going to back that up because they just went through the whole horse shit. But, and let me make myself bigger, and I will lay out my case to everybody. There are a lot of people that came here illegally, and I can understand it. If I lived in some of these countries, you bet your ass I would quit smoking and learn how to run to get my children across the border to a better place. 100%, all day long. I got zero problems with them whatsoever. I have a serious problem with our immigration system too, where people who are trying to get here illegally will literally spend, I'd have to look up one of the cases, literally spend $20,000 on lawyers and hearings to be able to immigrate here because they don't have the right visa or something. There was one, it was a damn, I think it was a comedian, spent $20,000 to immigrate legally to the United States. He could have spent $5,000 and walked across the border and been here and been fine, according to these people. So I zero problems with immigration at all. I think our immigration system is fucked and needs to be streamlined. Period. End of story. But to fix the fucking problem, you have to lock down the border first. Then, once you lock down the border, you control immigration very strictly for a couple of years. And while you do that, you find all these criminals that are come here, and God knows there's plenty of them. And I'm all to we just drop them off in different countries. Okay, you're an MS-13 gang member, done killed 4 people, running drugs, all this other shit. You get to go to Zimbabwe. We just spin a fucking wheel, and whatever country it lands on, It's where they get to fucking go. Swim back. But there are some seriously good fucking people that are here through no goddamn fault of their own, in some cases, that are going to get fucked over this. And that drives me as insane as gun laws do. And God knows, you guys know, that drives me insane. Because it's mind-boggling stupid. Why do we need to let in criminals, people who are actual criminals, not they cross the border, understand that's a criminal act, we can deal with that, but actual criminals, cartel members, gang members, rapists, child molesters, all that. Why do we need to let them into our country? We have enough of them on our goddamn own. We don't need to import anymore. I'm sorry. Fucking, hey, we're done. We need more doctors. We need, I won't say we need more lawyers because fuck knows they're killing this country. But we need more people that will actually assimilate into our country and become part of this country. Cubans back in the day were a great example of that. There were people from Southeast Asia that were great examples of that. They lived underneath tyranny. They came here. They fucking hate tyranny. Fucking rooftop Koreans. You guys are fucking great. Hold on, who the hell's calling me? Give me a sec. I'm going to back that hearing up back to the start, though. That way we can get the full flavor of this shit.
Who's been working on this deal? Things in it that
Watched in horror as Hamas, we passed H.R. 2, legislation to combat illegal immigration and
It's
ensure operational control over our southern border. Today, we take up 4 additional bills that will help restore order and the rule of law
Yes, it is.
to ensure that law enforcement, particularly the agents of Customs and Border Protection, are supported in their mission to keep our communities safe. Last year, Customs and Border Patrol agent Raul Gonzalez was doing his job, and he was tragically killed in pursuit of illegal immigrants who were fleeing law enforcement in a motor vehicle. High-speed chases started by those breaking our laws are not uncommon. Yet at present, those who initiate these high-stakes situations do not face any specific criminal or immigration consequences. That changes with H.R. 5585, the Agent Raul Gonzalez Officer Safety Act, which makes it illegal to flee from Border Patrol and law enforcement agents. The penalties instituted by the bill include prison time and ensure that perpetrators can be deemed inadmissible. And
let me pause that real fast. So I just get a call from a 404 number. It's in Georgia. I answered. Okay, who's this? They're doing questionnaires over presidential primaries and who you plan on voting for. And I asked this lady, I said, look, are you asking just for anybody in general, or are you asking for Georgia voters? She said, oh, we're asking for Georgia voters. Ma'am, I haven't lived there in 7 fucking years. Well, over 7 years now. Yeah, over 7 years now. Or is it? Somewhere around it. Either way, for a bunch of years, I haven't lived in Georgia. Why are you calling me about Georgia voting? Well, because I was never removed off the Georgia voting rolls. Like in 2020, me and my wife hadn't lived in Georgia for a couple of years. We still, at our old address, got mail-in ballots. Tell me again how 2024 is not going to be a fucking shit show. Because me and my wife could have voted in Georgia and Alabama if we were, dishonest douchebags. So anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program with a bunch more douchebags.
deported from the United States. Preventing deadly accidents that endanger lives is also the focus of H.R. 6976, Protect Our Communities from DUIs Act. With the turn of a key, an intoxicated driver commits a crime. Criminal and illegal migrants are no different. This legislation creates a new ground of inadmissibility and, in certain cases, deportation of migrants who drive under the influence of drugs or alcohol. In a similar vein, with identification fraud on the rise, HR 6678, the Consequences for Social Security Fraud Act, will ensure criminal or illegal migrants who commit Social Security and ID fraud can be removed and barred from the country. Finally, we will take up HR 6679, the No Immigration Benefits for Hamas Terrorists Act. In October, the world watched in horror as Hamas, a designated terror organization, committed a vicious and evil attack on Israel. 1,200 Israelis, including American citizens, were murdered and another 240 were taken back to Gaza as hostages. Terrorists who participated, planned, or otherwise supported the October 7 attacks should not be admissible to the United States. Full stop. There is no reason for a member of Hamas to ever be admitted to the United States.
I forgot to switch it back.
HR
Sorry.
6679 will make that a reality
Let's do that.
and ensure that we can prevent these deadly and evil people from ever entering our country and visiting the same type of tragedy on our people.
Yeah, it happens all the time,
Working
Chamber.
together, eradicating these gaps in our legal recourse will deter criminal activity and ensure
Not that I
bad
know
actors
of,
face
Matt, because me and the
appropriate
wife got the ballots and those got
discernment for
tossed.
their
But
crimes. I will now
Who
yield
knows?
to the ranking member, Mr. McGovern, to make any remarks he wishes to make.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for beginning this hearing by recognizing the 3 American service
Yeah.
men who lost their lives.
I'm on and off, guy. I'm watching the kiddos play out in the yard right now while we got a little bit of daylight, so I'm on and off.
Mr. Chairman, we've been hearing for months that Republicans care about border security. Bills every other week about the border. None of them ever become law. Press conferences and visits to the border amounting to nothing. Speeches and lectures about the border, all for show. Claims that Democrats don't care about border security, which is categorically false. But today I'm genuinely shocked because the Senate, at the urging of President Biden and in a bipartisan way, is working on an immigration bill to address border security. From what I hear, it's a tough bill, a bill that has things in it that I think might cause me a lot of angst. I'm not sure once I see the text if this is even something I can support.
Yeah, like letting over 5,000 illegals a day cross the border.
Is that they don't care about what gets negotiated. They're against it no matter what. And not because they don't like what's in the bill. They're against it because Donald Trump, who they're all afraid of, told them. they
Oh,
have to be
that's
against
spooky Donald
it. Wants
Trump.
to demagogue the border, to use it as a campaign issue,
Yeah.
and to scare people by demonizing immigrants and peddling fear and hate. So our side will keep an open mind
Whoa,
until these
too loud.
negotiations wrap up. But please spare us the
Okay, wearing
outrage and
headphones.
indignation. The truth is out there for everybody to see. Republicans want inaction at the border because they want to make this a campaign issue for Trump. Trump, the guy who said he would build a wall and Mexico would pay for it, remember that guy? Remember that? Never even finished his stupid wall, by the way, and instead it was the American taxpayer who paid for what little of it was built. This is why people hate Washington. It's all theatrics from my friends on the other side. It's all for show, all so they can go on Fox News and blame President Biden for the border problems that they refuse to fix. Republicans wanted to cut customs and border protection personnel. They rejected President Biden's request for $106 billion for border security, and then they voted against funding for border security. And now they're against a border security deal before they even know what's in it. A deal, by the way, that conservative Republican senators say would be the toughest, strongest border security bill in a generation. Unless, I mean, maybe did I miss something? Is Tom Tillis a liberal Democrat now? Senator Tillis, who has been working on this deal, called out House Republicans. He said, and I quote, "Don't pretend that this policy isn't strong. If you want to admit you're afraid to tell Trump the truth, that's fine. But for you to take a look at this framework and say it's a half measure, you're not paying attention or you're not telling the truth," end quote. And what about Senator Langford? Is he a Democrat now? He said just yesterday on Face the Nation that you all, meaning House Republicans, and I quote, actually don't want to change in law because it's a presidential election year, end quote. Since you're all so scared of Trump, let me quote the leader of our party, President Joe Biden, quote, "What's been negotiated would, if passed into law, be the toughest and fairest set of reforms to secure the border we've ever had in our country. It would give me as president a new emergency authority to shut down the border when it becomes overwhelmed. And if given that authority, I would use it the day I signed the bill into law," end quote. Now, who knows how these negotiations go? I'm keeping an open mind. But for Republicans to claim that they care so much about the border, to talk about how they want immediate action, and then to reject a border security deal before it's even been released is really kind of cynical. One of the most cynical things I think I've seen in all my time here. And then there's even a question of whether these useless messaging bills that are before us today actually make it to the floor. The far right voted down a rule a couple of weeks ago in retaliation for the funding deal that Speaker Johnson struck with the Democrats. That's the fifth rule this Congress that's gone down. Republicans used to waste time passing bills that had no chance in the Senate. Now they waste time trying to pass bills that they can't even pass in the House. So we don't pass laws up here anymore. We barely even pass rules. So maybe my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, maybe Mr. Roy or Mr. Norman will tell us how they plan to vote on the rule, because if they're going to vote against the rule again, let's just save ourselves the time and not even bother with the rest of this hearing. And at the end of the day, the truth is that Republicans don't want to fix the border. Those Democrats, Senate Democrats, President Biden, and now with the cooperation of Senate Republicans, we have been ready and we've been willing to work together in a bipartisan way to solve this
But
country's
it's
problem.
bipartisan.
Republicans apparently care more about making Trump happy than border security. What a shame.
Trump.
The chair thanks the gentleman. The gentleman yields back. Without objection,
MAGA,
any
MAGA, MAGA,
prepared
MAGA.
statements that our witnesses
Brady.
may have will be included in the report. I would like to welcome our first panel, Representative Tom McClintock and Ranking Member Gerald Nadler from the Committee on the Judiciary. Representative McClintock, I welcome your testimony.
The ballless wonder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. The Judiciary Committee has reported favorably on
Yeah,
four
Jay,
bills to
obviously.
strengthen our ability to keep bad actor foreign nationals out of the United States and help ensure that if already in the country, those bad actors can be quickly removed. Thanks to President Biden and his open border policies, the entire U.S. immigration system is in chaos, starting with the southwest border. When Mr. Trump left office, illegal
Over under
immigration
on
had
my
slowed
wife
to a
calling me
trickle.
about
The Remain in Mexico policy had
7
all
to
but
10
stopped
minutes.
phony asylum claims. The border wall was nearing completion, and we were actually enforcing court-ordered deportations. On his first day in office, Mr. Biden reversed these policies and initiated the largest illegal mass migration in
Let me
recorded history.
find something. I'll post it in the chat.
This policy is
Really
deliberate
watch.
and it's devastating. It's
Um,
broken the social safety net for Americans. It's packed classrooms with non-English speaking students. It's closed entire high schools to house them. It's flooded emergency rooms with illegals demanding basic care. It's flooded the country with deadly fentanyl. It's locked working families into perpetual wage stagnation and is increasingly consumed the attention of law enforcement.
Yeah, there was
These
object-
four bills deal with just a few of the dangers that this administration has
Actually, I wrote
unleashed
two.
by its reckless abandonment of our borders. High-speed chases that are killing Americans, identity theft of American Social Security accounts, drunk driving deaths caused by illegals, and the entry of terrorists
This
into our
video is
country.
from the 10th Amendment.
Now, let's start with HR
Not all men need
5585.
to.
That's the Agent Raul Gonzalez, Officer
Because
of
he
Safety
goes
Act.
through and explains the
Mr. Chairman, as
supremacy
you
clause.
pointed out, Agent Gonzalez
Now,
was
let
killed
me
in
find
Mission,
the other
Texas on December 7th, 2022, while he was pursuing a
Here it
group
is,
of illegal
Texas
aliens
5.
in a high-speed chase. This is becoming an increasing
This
occurrence in
video
our border
is from a
towns.
history professor.
This bill would make it a federal crime for
Exceptionally
human
sharp
smugglers
dude
and others to evade
that I've
border
met
patrol agents or
on
law
multiple
enforcement
occasions.
entities actively assisting those
And
agents
he
within
explains
100
the
miles of
situation
the border
to
and
me
make such offenders
states
inadmissible
right now.
to and removable from our country as if
Two
they're foreign nationals.
great videos to
HR
watch and two great
6678
videos to share.
makes aliens inadmissible to and removable from our country for committing Social
Hey,
Security or
you leave my
identity
prison
theft.
wallet alone.
In 2017, now that's before the Democrats opened our borders and introduced the largest illegal mass migration in history.
Leave my prison
There were
wallet out of this
1.2
conversation.
million cases in which illegal aliens had used Social Security numbers that either belonged to somebody else
Hey, what's up,
or
my
were
brother?
simply fabricated. The Trump
Yeah, those
administration
two
tried to
videos I just
address
posted,
this
one is a
by
10
alerting
second sentence
employers to the
explaining the
suspicious use of
clause.
social security
Number
numbers.
two
But
is
Biden ended
Brian
this
McClanahan
program.
explaining the situation.
And since the number of illegals has
they have
expanded
right
exponentially since
really
then,
what
it's
Biden
likely that so too has the
authority to
fraud.
do or not do.
The harm to Americans whose
two
ID
great
is stolen can be
videos to
devastating,
watch.
destroying their credit, often taking
Especially with what's
years
going on
of
with
frustration to correct. Yet there's no guarantee that these identity thieves will be removed from our country.
Hey, look,
HR
you
6678
guys are all about my
changes that.
PWEDC. Just because like
HR
I did a 357 J
6679
frame up there,
ensures
don't
that
mean
aliens who are members of Hamas, the Palestinian
says that
Islamic
like it's
Jihad,
up in the barrel.
as well as those aliens who participated in the horrific and barbaric attacks on Israeli families beginning on October 7th, 2023, are to be quickly removed from our country, and it bars them from any relief whenever and wherever they are encountered. Now, this won't stop the
Those
influx
two
of
videos
terrorists into
are
this country.
exceptionally
Only an
sharp.
administration
Actually
committed to
explain this.
securing our border
Uh,
and protecting Americans can do that.
And
But this bill does send an important
tells you
message
how
around the world.
shit
If you
other people
associate
are
with Hamas,
talk about
you will get
Texas
no
freaking
comfort or
laws,
quarter here.
or shit.
You are persona non grata, as you should be in any corner of the world that values peace, justice, and human dignity. Finally, HR 6976, the Protect Our Communities from DUIs Act, closes a long-standing loophole in U.S. immigration law that has resulted in aliens who drive under the influence of alcohol or drugs not being subject to immigration consequences. Currently, there's no ground of admissibility or ground of removability explicitly related to DUIs. This bill changes that. Now, obviously, not all drunk driving deaths and injuries are committed by aliens.
No, but we
too
have
many
enough dumbasses driving drunk in
For
America.
example,
We
just
don't
last
need to
month, an
import
illegal alien drunk driver was
Much like
charged
with
with killing a
criminals.
46-year-old
We have enough
mother
of our own.
and her 16-year-old son. He had multiple previous DUI offenses, and just days before the crash, had been sentenced to probation for one of those prior offenses. Why shouldn't we make it easier to remove such people from our country more quickly?
Look at Jerry Nadler's.
Mr. Chairman, the mass illegal migration unleashed by this administration obviously can't be fixed by bills that won't be signed, laws that won't be
Jerry
enforced,
Nadler, the one that
funds
said
that will be used to
Antifa didn't
release illegal
exist.
aliens but not expel them,
Well, many
or by replacing one leftist official with another. And this is where I may partially agree with the ranking member. It can only be fixed by voters replacing this administration with one dedicated to enforcing our laws, securing our borders, and defending our country. But in the meantime, the House can lay the groundwork for a new administration, and these bills are a small
because
step
this
in that
statement's all a
direction.
bunch of
I
horseshit.
yield back.
But the
Yields
U.S.
back, Chair.
can
Thank you,
literally
gentlemen. The
control
gentleman
our
from New York is
borders,
recognized.
streamline the immigration system, and alleviate all this.
Thank you,
Both
Mr. Chairman.
Republicans and
Chairman
Democrats.
Cole, Ranking Member McGovern, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. Unfortunately, it
What's this?
appears my Republican colleagues
I
are
got
out of
talk
ideas.
about fat fucks.
2 weeks
What's
ago,
this?
I was here for a pointless, non-binding resolution that did nothing to improve the situation at the border. This week, it is for multiple bills that are largely duplicative of current law and amount to little more than desperate attempts to score political points by scapegoating and fear-mongering about immigrants. Nor do these bills have much connection with the situation at the border. None of these bills stand any chance of becoming law, nor would they improve our immigration system or
Senate
make Americans
blocked it.
safer.
The president wouldn't
It is
sign
long past time for House Republicans to engage in bipartisan discussions to address our broken immigration system. But as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell laid bare just last week, too many Republicans.
Do Joe Va. Do you follow? And this is a serious question. Do you follow the Sean Ryan show? You and Armel talking about blades and stuff the other night on his channel, dude. I haven't watched the whole thing, but there's a seal on there talking about, and apparently I haven't looked into him. He's got a lot of stuff for blade work and ground work and stuff like that. And the little bit that I've listened to has been freaking outstanding. He hadn't gone into all the details of stuff, but he has talked about having to use blades in close combat, and it's a good listen so far. So if you're not following the Sean Ryan show, yes, there you go. Yep, I figured you would. I just wanted to ask. Now back to this fucking shit show. Oh God, someone kill me now.
led by Donald Trump, want the issue of immigration more than they want to find meaningful solutions. That is the context in which we find ourselves in the Rules Committee
I just thought it was a
today.
cool topic since
While I'm here, let's go
you and
through each of these
Armel were
bills.
just talking
I'll
about.
start with HR
That shit was
5585,
live
the Agent
today.
Raul Gonzalez Officer Safety Act. This legislation makes it a crime to flee Border Patrol while operating a vehicle and includes an unnecessary mandatory minimum sentence that runs counter to the bipartisan progress that we have made on criminal justice reform in recent
Yeah,
years.
you got to see
While
videos.
this conduct is largely covered by another criminal statute, which makes it a crime to evade a Border Patrol checkpoint, this legislation also adds significant
Penguin.
immigration consequences. Under this bill, the crime of fleeing Border Patrol becomes an inadmissibility and deportability offense. But just as the new crimes in this bill are largely covered by current law, evading or fleeing law enforcement is already an inadmissibility and deportability offense. Where this bill makes a significant change is by not requiring that an individual be convicted of the crime
Yeah,
to
dude.
render them
Joe
deportable.
Sean
Doesn't have
Ryan
to
has
be
a
convicted of the crime.
top-notch shoe.
While there are exceptions, the majority of the deportability grounds in current law require a conviction. That is because we are dealing with those who are already here and came here lawfully,
All
and
right,
have often lived in the United States for a long time. We're not talking about illegal immigrants. Remember that someone who is here unlawfully is already removable. Therefore, we are talking about lawful permanent residents, people who have put down roots in our communities, many of whom have U.S. citizens, spouses, and children, and who have truly established themselves here in the United States. By not requiring a conviction before making someone deportable, this bill flies in the face of due process. We have the same issue when it comes to H.R. 6678, the Consequences for Social Security Fraud Act. Convictions for Social Security fraud are largely captured by our current laws. Fraud-related crimes are considered crimes involving moral turpitude, commonly called a CMT. And convictions involving falsely making, forging, counterfeiting, or altering a document that can be used as evidence of authorized stay or employment in the United States is specifically defined as an aggravated felony. A conviction for any of these already makes someone deportable. Unfortunately, the majority once again decides not to require a conviction for people to be deported, and once again places their desire to attack and demonize immigrants before any concern for due process. Then we have H.R. 6976, the Protect Communities from DUIs Act. At least for this bill, the majority requires a conviction to deport a green card holder. Driving under the influence or DUI is, of course, a serious issue. No one wants to see individuals who are true threats to public safety eligible for immigration benefits. However, serious DUI convictions already make an individual inadmissible and deportable under current law. DUI, where the maximum possible penalty is a year or more, and where there is serious bodily harm, hit and runs, aggravated DUI, driving with knowledge of an invalid, suspended, or revoked license are already CIMTs. But this bill goes much further. It does not take into account the DUI statutes across our country are broad and varied. Some states allow DUI prosecutions of individuals who are asleep, inebriated in their car, even if their car was parked in their own driveway. And this is not hypothetical. We know this to be the case because people have actually been prosecuted and convicted for DUI for these minor infractions. This issue and other problems with these bills could have been addressed by amendments that Democrats offered during our markup, but each was rejected on a party line vote. The last bill, H.R. 6679, the No Immigration Benefits for Hamas Terrorist Acts, is very personal to me. On October 7th, Hamas committed a horrific assault on innocent civilians in Israel, murdering 1,200 people, including 32 Americans, killing the most Jewish people in a single day since the Holocaust. Even today, over 110 days later, Hamas continues to hold innocent men, women, and children in captivity. Not a day goes by that I don't think of the hostages and the horrors they continue to endure. Too many lives have been shattered by this attack and the war that followed on both sides of the conflict. This bill has a goal that I strongly support: to ensure that no one involved with the planning or commission of the October 7th attack
What's up,
can
Gavin?
enter
What's
the
happening,
United
brother?
States or receive any immigration benefit. It is not clear what its purpose is, however, since such individuals are already barred from entry and cannot receive any immigration status. Hamas has been listed as a terrorist organization by the State Department since 1997. And the
Yeah,
immigration laws are very
some
broad,
guys can be real finicky
saying that the United States
about
merely needs, quote,
and
reason
how
to
much
believe,
tension is on the lift,
that any non-citizen has engaged
follow
in
it.
terrorist activity,
and how much
provided
tension is on the
material support
round
to
coming
terrorists,
up.
or is a member or representative of a terrorist organization.
There's a lot of dudes
or
that
a group
recommend
that
loading your
endorses or
28
sponsors
round or
terrorist
your
activity
30 round mags
to be
28.
inadmissible to the country.
I try to stay
The
around
breadth of this
29.
provision is so extensive, it has been used to bar someone from accessing asylum who was forced to cook and clean for a guerrilla group. As such, this bill is largely redundant to current law. Even the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office determined it would have little to no impact because of the breadth of
If
existing
the
law.
federal government was
We asked the majority to work
enforcing
with us to ensure that this
the law
legislation
as
had
it
no
is,
unintended consequences, and to format this legislation as we normally do, as visa sanctions legislation. But unfortunately, this request was ignored. For decades, the Judiciary Committee and the Congress have used
Yeah,
visa
Mike, I got to
sanctions
watch that
to
too.
target
That
specific
bill's actually
individuals
still up
engaged
on
in
my
specific
computer right
events.
now.
However, the majority here has
It
chosen
is
a different path
fucking
and
insane.
directly amends the Immigration and Nationality Act, something we did
I
not
mean,
even do after
seriously
September
insane.
11th, when we wanted to target al-Qaeda. I will still support this bill, but I worry that the majority's inability to work with us will doom its chances to become law, making it another meaningless vote.
Speaking
I'm
of
disappointed that they would take this important issue and turn it into a
she
partisan
did try to call it
political
for them.
football. Unfortunately, that seems to be the standard operating procedure under this Republican majority. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to the committee's questions.
Gentleman yields back. Chair thanks. Gentlemen, let me begin with a few questions.
You do. I might
Mr. McClintock,
later, but right
I
now,
was with that
I'm not
group
picking them up.
that Speaker Johnson took down to Eagle Pass a few weeks ago, and I think you were in that
You guys can
trip as
do
well,
it.
were you not?
I was.
And it was striking how you saw on the news from the week before, thousands of people queued up in that field. They still had the orange fencing up. Thousands of people queued up in that field, and yet when we arrived, there were zero.
Well, not exactly zero. There were
Well,
still-
but there were,
still groups crossing
Sure.
and taunting the border patrol as they crossed. That's what I found the most infuriating.
It was
They're basically
infuriating.
thumbing their noses at us.
however, it can be, what is also infuriating is to recognize that it can be stopped. It can be controlled. It can be halted. Now, I don't know whether that was Joe Biden or the cartels that decided it would be better to keep throngs of people away from Eagle Pass, Texas that day. Well, members of Congress showed up. But we saw it with our own eyes. It can happen. You're right about the stragglers that came across the river, and it was doubly infuriating where they were simply picked up by Customs and Border Protection and taken down to a processing site to be shipped somewhere in the country. But there we're talking about 12 to 25 people.
I put a post on X the other day just to stop this and be funny for a second. If you're riding with Biden, I guarantee you the air fresheners smell like little kids. Back at it.
Well, nowhere near the thousands that were on the news the week before. So it just begs the
Agawam,
question. We know
brother,
they
man, what's
can
up?
control it. The president says, oh, if we sign this bill, I'll enforce it immediately. He could enforce it today. The president has the power today to fix this problem, and he chooses not to. Is that not correct?
Oh, absolutely. Under the Immigration Naturalization Act, he has complete authority to shut down the border completely, to refuse entry of anyone if he believes it's in the national interest. He refuses to do so. We saw under the Trump administration the effect of the Remain in Mexico policy that slowed phony asylum claims to a trickle. The Border Patrol saying that the completion of the border wall absolutely essential as a force multiplier for them to do their jobs. And of course, enforcing court-ordered deportations ought to be a no-brainer. The president on his first day in office ordered ICE not to enforce those laws. There are currently 1.3 million court-ordered deportations. These are people who have gone through the process, have received a final order of deportation, and those orders are simply being ignored. But you know who has complete control of the border? The cartels. As we also heard at Eagle Pass, the cartels just in the Del Rio sector alone are making $32 million a week trafficking illegal immigrants into the country. That's over $1.5 billion a year to the cartels just in that one sector, aided and abetted entirely.
That's, oh, shit. Hold on. I hit the wrong
The
button.
green card
Hit it
holds.
too close.
Now, you saw in the news from the week before,
And just to touch on this real fast. Okay, if we had an immigration system worth of shit, then a family could stop at an embassy, because we have embassies in all of these countries. They could stop at that embassy, file paperwork, and immigrate to the United States in a reasonable amount of time. We don't have a decent immigration system. So I can't understand people getting here by any means necessary. I can completely understand that. If it's against me being able to feed my children, live in a country where I'm, at least halfway safe or anything, yeah, would I load my kids up and make a fucking few 100-mile journey through all sorts of BS and take all sorts of chances to get them here versus being killed in the damn village? Hell yeah, I would. No fucking parent in their right mind wouldn't. But they wouldn't have to make that journey if these jackasses would actually control the border and do something about the immigration system itself. It's not hard for a fucking rational person to get through this shit. It's the general 1, 2, 3 math at that point. But for the most part, our government, my entire life, has never wanted to fix this problem. They've never wanted to solve this problem because Democrats are going to get votes out of it and Republicans are going to get cheap labor out of it. If you boil it down to its lowest parts, that's what you get. So they're both making money off of it. And if you look at reports coming out of people who are immigrating here illegally, the shit that goes on from the time they leave their country till the time they get here is absolutely insane. They focus on women and little girls getting sexually assaulted. Trust me, sexually assaulted too. Be unspeakable things. Because they know once they get to the border, these people aren't going to say shit and they are just going to be happy that they're free. It's maddening. It really is. When we have a country with enough technological innovation and enough labor and enough freaking whatever's where we could solve that problem. But these people will fuel the human trafficking, these kids going into the sex trade. They will fuel people just being used as maids and never being allowed to really move anywhere else, much like indentured servants. And a lot of this it's a slave trade. Our government has never changed in some regards when it comes to that. Why people can't open their eyes to that, I don't know. Well, look, man, it's not a question of a color, anything like that. It's a question of values. Do you value freedom or do you not value freedom? Do you value liberty or do you not value liberty? It's like Cubans coming in our country. For a large part of them, they were a net gain for the United States. These were people who lived underneath communism. They knew what it was like, and they wanted to be free, and then they were here. Were there some that were evil little sons of bitches? Yes. Look at the cocaine wars and stuff in South Florida, in the cocaine trade, the drug trade. Yeah, there were some evil bastards that were involved in that. Could we control that? And could we actually, I mean, we probably can't get rid of all of it, but could we lower the percentage of shitheads we get versus the percentage of people who will make this country better? Yes, we could, if we controlled our fucking borders. But again, Democrats are doing it for votes. Republicans are letting it go for money because cheap labor and shit like that. And a lot of what we're seeing is all this grandstanding horse shit right now. And there are a handful of people in Washington that actually want to fix this and make the system better. The rest of them, they just want to talk horse shit. Let the same old thing happen, to happen. Biden puts through a bullshit bill, or his Democrats do, basically saying 5,000 illegals can come through a day. 5,000 illegals can come through a day. And then if they hit 5,001, maybe they'll kind of lock things down for the day, and then they'll let it happen the next day. There's no way to fix a flooded house until you shut the fucking water off. And then you control through valves and pipes and everything else how it comes into your house. And right now, there are a handful of people trying to bail water out while 3 times as much water is coming in. It ain't even keeping us afloat. You ain't even got the water out of the basement yet. You're already on the 2nd floor about half-ass drowning. DB, Tactical FUD, what's up, my brothers? All right, let's let this play some mo.
Thousands of people queued up in that field. They still had the orange fencing up. Thousands of people queued up in that field, and yet when we arrived, there were 0.
Well, not exactly 0.
But there were
still groups crossing
Sure.
and taunting the border patrol as they crossed. That's what I found the most infuriating.
It was
They're basically
infuriating.
thumbing their noses at us.
However,
And here's
it can be.
something I'll add
What is also infuriating is to
It's
recognize
not
that
that way. I want to live amongst people with my same value system. I don't give a shit whether pink, purple, polka dot, black, white, green, yellow. As long as we're based on the same value system, that's where I'm at. If you're not on that same value system, then no, we're not going to find common ground. If you don't believe in freedom and liberty and you think that government is going to solve all your issues, we ain't getting along. We don't have any middle ground. And if we talk about that and for a little bit, I can't get you kind of over to my side and you still think the government is the big swinging dick that's going to solve every issue you got, no, we're never really going to get along, ever. Because that freedom and that justice that a lot of us all believe in. That's why I have my issues with people in the Second Amendment community. The community should be about freedom. Whether or not you believe in guns, whether or not you believe in prepping, whether or not you believe in it should be based in that freedom of the individual. If we believe in that, we can get along, period. We might disagree on some topics, but we can get along. But people buy into this horse shit with color and race and all this other that doesn't mean shit. There are plenty of people that have moved here from other countries that are plenty of different colors who believe in freedom. Well, yeah, Gabbard, that's the way it is. I guarantee you, if you poll most people, they want their lineage to continue looking like them. And that's not a bad thing. But what I am saying is, it doesn't have to be, as long as we can agree on these values. If we can agree on the values, I don't care. But we have to agree on those values, that structure, that everything is based in freedom and liberty and personal responsibility. If we can agree on those, I don't give a shit. I really, really don't. But we have to agree on those. Now, if you come in and you're from whatever country and you think the government's the one that's going to save you and you think the government needs more power and oh, I don't need that freedom. I don't do anything wrong, so the government can spy on me and shit like that. No, we ain't getting along, brother. We just ain't. You ain't invited to the barbecue at that point. Whether I throw a pig on the grill or whether I throw a completely kosher barbecue, your ass ain't getting invited to that shit. Doesn't matter, because we can't agree on the principles of liberty and freedom. And if we can't agree on that, we ain't getting along. I'll put it very simply. There are people of every other color around this world, from the blackest of African to the whitest of South African to the yellowest of Asian, that I will trade any fucking day of the week for some cracker ass liberal who thinks the government is going to save the world. Period. Stop. End of story. That's all there is to it. Yes, that's because a lot of people in the United States have been too lazy. They've got fed this line that government's going to save you. Government's the answer. Government is the cancer, not the answer. I'm rhyming. See, I'm a white boy. I can rap. But yeah, government is the cancer. And I've said it before. Government gives you cancer and then tells you that more cancer is going to fix the cancer. That's not how cancer works, baby. If I've got pancreatic cancer and all of a sudden you give me lung cancer or brain cancer, that doesn't fix the fucking problem. It's just more cancer. If you take more of my freedom, if you take more of my liberty, if you spy on me more and all this horse shit, you're not making me more free. You're just making me a bigger fucking slave. Period. And that ought to ring with everybody on this planet, because there is not a single race, color, creed, ethnicity, however you want to say it, that has not been a slave at some point in time in their history. Period. Slavery was the norm from the time one dude figured out he could take a bigger stick and hit the other dude in the head with it and force them to do what he wanted them to do. Now it's just a little bit nicer. You don't notice the bars on your cage. We got football. Sorry, that went on a little bit further rant than it probably wanted to, but hey, fuck it. Let's ride, Clyde. I'm tired, a little wired, and I really can't stand government. So there it is. Bread and circuses. You are goddamn right. Bread, circuses, keep everybody stirred up over race. Don't let people agree on principles. Just, yeah. It's the same fucking game our government's played from the outset in a lot of cases.
It can be stopped. It can be controlled. It can be halted. Now, I don't know whether that was Joe Biden or the cartels that decided it would be better to keep throngs of people away from Eagle Pass, Texas that day while members of Congress showed up. But we saw it with our own eyes. It can happen. You're right about the stragglers that came across the river, and it was doubly infuriating where they were simply picked up by Customs and Border Protection and taken down to a processing site to be shipped somewhere in the country. But there we're talking about 12 to 25 people, nowhere near the thousands that were on the news the week before. So it just begs the question. We know they can control it. The president says, oh, if we sign this bill, I'll enforce it immediately. He could enforce it today. The president has the power today to fix this problem, and he chooses not to. Is that not correct?
Oh, absolutely. Under the Immigration Naturalization Act, he has complete authority to shut down the border completely, to refuse entry of anyone if he believes it's in the national interest. He refuses to do so. We saw under the Trump administration the effect of the Remain in Mexico policy that slowed phony asylum claims to a trickle. the Border Patrol, saying that the completion of the border wall absolutely essential as a force multiplier for them to do their jobs. And of course, enforcing court-ordered deportations ought to be a no-brainer. The president on his first day in office ordered ICE not to enforce those laws. There are currently 1.3 million court-ordered deportations. These are people who have gone through the process, have received a final order of deportation, and those orders are simply being ignored. But you know who has complete control of the border? The cartels. As we also heard at Eagle Pass, the cartels just in the Del Rio sector alone are making $32 million a week trafficking illegal immigrants into the country. That's over $1.5 billion a year to the cartels just in that one sector, aided and abetted entirely by this administration's policies. The Border Patrol was very, very clear on this point. No one crosses the border without paying the cartels.
Like when the government
It's only when they reach our side of the border that there's no control. So the cartels are making over $1 billion a year
any fucking day of the week
controlling the border, and this administration is spending billions of dollars a year with it wide open, and those billions of dollars are going to traffic millions of illegal immigrants into the country to the detriment of the people of this nation.
Yeah, I've heard it said before that no one goes into the river without permission from the cartels and probably some sort of monetary exchange.
Right, and if I could add just one other thing in response to the ranking member, he should know, it's not just conviction. He's saying, well, you don't have to be convicted. That's true. Under this bill, you don't have to be convicted after years and years of cases. But if you're not convicted, you have to have confessed to that crime. This doesn't simply deport someone based upon somebody's suspicion or accusation. Either they're convicted of it or they have to admit to it. Those are the criteria under which these bills operate.
You can get due process.
So to suggest that somehow this is an
You don't have all the other
arbitrary
rights that
expulsion
American citizens
is
are.
simply false.
So let me ask you another question. On the issue of there is already existing law to cover each of these eventualities. With your work on the committee, what is your response?
And make no mistake,
Well, again,
these Democrats will argue, well, it has to be
experience
conviction
has
for
been
these
that under
illegal
current law,
immigrants.
it can take
But they'll
years
strip you of
and
every
years
fucking
and
gun you
years
own
to expel somebody
because
who's admitted to the
made
crime,
or made an
but is now
accusation.
contesting it in court. This ends that
Really?
that farce and assures that these people can be expelled if
Good
they've
deal,
if they've
Walsall.
admitted to their crime. Get them out of the country.
I'm thinking about getting me
We've been at this
another mic,
for a long time.
maybe some other lighting and shit. We'll
And one of the questions that's repeatedly come up, and it's never
I'll
answered
drink and talk shit. So
by the other side, is, well, the United States is a pretty generous country. We accept 1.2 million people a year into this country legally, probably more than any other country on the face of the earth. So with that background, with that backdrop,
I got to check them
what
out.
is
I've
the
heard about it
number
before.
that people want to be able to come in without the benefit of permission and then subsequently be legalized to receive amnesty?
Right.
And no one will ever tell you what that number is.
Well, actually, Gallup warned us that according to their polling,
Look 'em up,
42
you.
million people living in Latin America and the Caribbean alone, forget about the rest of the world, intend to come here now that they can. We've already seen this administration deliberately release 3.3 million illegal immigrants into this country in defiance of our laws. That's a population the size of the entire state of Iowa. And while the Border Patrol has been overwhelmed, taking names and changing diapers, another 1.7 million known gotaways. These are people that we either watched or tracked enter our country but couldn't stop, have also entered the country.
Yeah,
That is
dude,
an
I did.
additional, illegal
pause this for a
population
second.
the size of the state of West Virginia.
It's 20. When did I get my CWI? 2016. One of the guys in the CWI classes, certified welding inspector classes I was in, was originally from Venezuela. He worked for I think Shell and a couple of big oil companies, talking to the dude. Now I'm taking this dude at his word, obviously. He doesn't have a whole lot of reason to lie to me in the conversation we're having, but he talked about having hundreds of acres with cattle, you name it. And then the government comes in, I think under Chavez, and says, look, we're taking your complete retirement. All of your land is now going to be basically ours. You don't own anything. You don't have this money. In the profession he was in with him, the particular sector of the oil industry he was in, and with his reputation with Shell and other companies, he was able to legally immigrate to the United States. And that was way earlier. I can't remember when exactly it was, but I asked him then. Me and him were sitting at Chick-fil-A having lunch in between classes. And I was like, because he said his dad was still there. And his dad at the time, I think, was 80-something years old. I said, would you go back and visit? And dude looked at me and said, in really broken English, went, no. He said, I am never setting foot back in that country. With everything that went on, no. He said, my dad's there. I love my dad, family, all that. Beautiful land, beautiful women, whole 9 yards. I am never going back. I will take that dude over a raving leftist anti-gun bastard in the United States every day of the week. I still say we do like a trade-off. For every one of them we get that believes in freedom, we send at least 1 to 2 big government people to whatever country they came from. It's like a trade, man. It's just like playing cards. We'll take them. You guys that believe in socialism, communism, you guys go fucking fill their spot up. Tell us how it turns out. Yeah, Mike, you ain't wrong, bro. We headed that way.
That under this administration. And I'm afraid that the effect, not just on our social services, but on our national security is grave.
Well, I think President Biden has set the
That would
parameter
be
now,
hysterical,
5,000 a day, that
when they
calculates
actually
out to
saw what
almost
it
2
was.
million people a year, figuring that there's going to be more than 5,000 a day that come across before they call a halt to it.
What do you
Well,
mean?
they'll simply
We all
stage
get to
it so
starve
it'll
the
be
same?
steady
Yeah.
5,000 a day.
You wanted it.
And this is considered an improvement to what the administration is now doing.
And I guess that's where I'm having difficulty. If you can do that at 5,000 a day, why not at 500 or 50?
Well, Governor
Or 5.
DeSantis said the threshold should be 0. There
Yeah.
should be 0 illegal immigrants admitted into this country. And let's not confuse the two, as the ranking member just did, by saying that we're fear mongering and scapegoating immigrants. There is a distinct difference between a legal immigrant who has come to our country out of a love of our nation, who wants their children to become Americans, who have done everything
You
our
forgot,
country's
it's
asked us to
lesbian
do, have waited
interpretive
patiently,
dance.
have obeyed all of our laws, and now have watched 5 million illegal immigrants cut in line in front of them. The people I find who are the angriest about illegal immigration are the legal
Yeah,
immigrants.
Warsaw.
To
have.
conflate the two,
And that's
to
going to be a bit of a
compare that
demonstration.
legal immigrant who has come here obeying our laws with the illegal immigrant who has come here thumbing his nose at our laws and our nation's sovereignty is an insult to every one of those legal immigrants who are
These
the
little
backbone
bastards don't realize
of our country.
We
system.
may be the first ones on the
Absolutely
train,
correct.
but they're little useful idiots.
I'm going to yield
Are
to the
going to be
ranking
on
member
that
for any
same
questions
train
he
when the
may have.
government finds them not
Yeah,
useful.
thank you,
anymore.
Mr. Chairman. First, let me just state for the record, today there were approximately 38,000 people in immigration
It is
detention,
douchebag.
which is 4,000 more than what DHS
Bring
is
this up
funded
to
for,
your-
and roughly what the Trump administration averaged in the fiscal year 2018. The Biden administration has also significantly increased removals, quite frankly, in ways that many in my caucus worry violates due process. Since the end of Title 42 last year, the Biden administration
Here-
has
here
removed or returned to
illegally, they
Mexico
don't have
close to 500,000 individuals,
any kind of
including over 78,000 individual members of family units, including children. The total is nearly equivalent to the number of people removed in all of the fiscal year 2019 under the Trump administration.
These
I
are the
don't
people that
believe
have
that's
effectively
an open
lost
border. Let me
87,000
just say,
children
Mr. McClintock, I
plus
do
in
agree
the last couple of years.
with you on
They
one
have
thing,
no idea where they
and
went.
that is we need
Well,
somebody
they say they don't.
to lead our country who follows the law. Our
They know where they went.
previous
They went
president,
into
just
child
to remind
sex
everybody,
trafficking and all kinds of shit like
4
that.
indictments with 91 charges, all of them felonies, all of them felonies. He's been indicted more times than he's been elected. And just recently, he was ordered by a jury of his peers to pay $85 million for defaming a woman who he sexually assaulted. So when we talk about following the laws, let us hope that somebody who has such
You're going to hear
disregard
that
for the law
line
and such
of
disregard
charge
for our Constitution
for the next
never gets
election.
anywhere near the White House. And while we're on the subject of Donald Trump, Mr. McClintock, he said, and this will give you an opportunity to distance
Go
yourself
from
the
America
understanding.
and
He said,
cross the border,
quote,
go into
immigrants,
Mexico and see how you get
distinguish between legal immigrants,
if you do it illegal.
undocumented immigrants. He said immigrants poison the blood of our country. Would you agree that that's an offensive thing? Or
If that's what he actually
what he
said in
said.
the context that he said
He
it.
did.
But I
And you
found
know who
over
said
the
that?
years, I found over the
and
years
Hitler
that
said,
how
and that's
he's,
a quote from Adolf Hitler as
what I
well.
found over the years is what he says and what he is quoted as saying are two very different
Oh,
things. So
okay.
I'd be
All right.
very
Yeah.
skeptical.
Yeah, I mean, it's on, I mean, it's like, the I
take-
get
take, for
I
example-
get the fact that everybody's on the Republican side's afraid of him. But I mean, the lengths that
I'm
people
not
go,
afraid of him. I'm
the
not.
lengths that people go to defend the indefensible. But let me go into a different subject here. I've served on this committee for a long time. Maybe not best to say exactly how long, but it's been a long time.
Too
But
fucking long.
the Rules Committee used to be a place where we showed up to really get things done, where we would discuss the big pressing issues facing our country,
Yeah.
where we would debate how each side
About
thought this problem should be solved,
1780 maybe.
and where we'd pass consequential legislation to improve the lives of Americans. That's why it has been difficult to watch this committee turn into a venue solely for what members, even members of the majority, call, I quote,
We're going to have to go
messaging
to
bills
full
that
on
don't
Sheriff
matter.
Payne rule
Mr. McClintock,
he finishes his statement,
you know
which
how many
means
bills
put
the
your gun out of
Judiciary
arm's
Committee has
reach.
testified
I'm not
on up
responsible
here
for
since
shot
Republicans took
computers,
control
broken
of Congress
phones,
last year
shot
have actually become
TVs.
law?
Well, if we had a president who would sign them and a Senate that would pass them, we'd have quite a few, including the toughest immigration bill in
Well,
100 years.
let me answer. It's zero. Zero is the answer.
Right, well,
Not
that's
a
my
single
point.
judiciary bill that has come before the Rules Committee has become law, which is absurd because I feel like the Judiciary Committee is before us every week. And those on the other
What
side of the dais
Judiciary
may,
Committee should be
are
doing
probably
right now
about to
is
say, well,
calling the
I'm
judges,
cherry picking data,
judges
and
to
the
the carpet
Judiciary Committee is an
to
outlier.
explain why they won't
But do you know,
fucking
but do you,
enforce the
do
Constitution
you all know
and
when
they
the
just
last time this committee
enforce their own feelings.
met on a bill that got signed into law?
That's where we get to it,
tell you,
Warsaw.
8 months ago, when we met on the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and even that moved forward because Democrats were the adults in the room and actually voted for the rule to avoid a debt ceiling
What?
disaster. That's 8 months.
He just said that.
More than half of our time this Congress wasted on, and I quote,
Democrats being the adult in the
messaging
room.
bills that don't matter. And at this point, I'm not sure if that's a bug or a feature of
You
this,
just got
for this
slapped right
Republican
in the
majority.
fucking face.
And, you know, and I heard you just say, well, that's if we had the president
Republicans
sign
at best
everything
are the toddler in the
we passed here, that it would be different. Well, I would say to my Republican friends, you're not dictators yet. Okay? And the deal is the Congress, the last time I checked, is Republicans narrowly control the House. The Democrats narrowly control the Senate. And we have a Democratic president. So if we are interested in legislating and getting things done, there is a give and take. It's not my way or the highway. And as I said in my opening remarks,
Yeah,
it really
politics can be in
concerns me.
trouble.
And again, I have lots of concerns about what the Senate is negotiating on immigration right now and on border security. And my concerns are different from yours. But to hear the
I'm
former
gonna check
president of
on
the
my
United
videos real
States
fast.
and to hear members in this House say,
Make sure they're
we
cleaning
will-
up the living room.
we're dismissing whatever they do out of line. We will not even have a debate. They will have no vote on any of this stuff because, we don't want to do anything. We want to basically preserve this issue for an election matter. Mr. Nadler, are any of the bills that we are talking about today, will any of these bills directly help solve the problems that we currently have at the southern border?
No, they certainly are not, they're not addressed to the problems of the southern border. Let me comment, by the way, on two things.
Okay.
Number one, a lot of falsehoods have been heard around this table today. Under President Trump, hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants were released into the country with a court date years down the road every single year. This was not a problem created by President Biden. Every single year under Trump, hundreds of thousands of people were released into the country with a court date several years later. President Biden has asked, and I discussed this at this committee previously, has asked for appropriations to increase the number of Border Patrol, to increase the number of asylum judges and immigration judges, so that people can get their asylum claims adjudicated in weeks, not in years. And those entitled to asylum can work, and those not entitled to asylum can be speedily deported. That's President Biden's proposal. $14 billion would accomplish that. This Congress, the Republicans, will not do that. So when they talk about people released into the country for years, A, they're not talking about a new problem, it's happened under Trump, and B, they're talking about a problem that they are stopping from being solved. Let me say one other thing. I've discussed the objections to these bills, the specific objections to these specific bills. Mr. McClintock made one point, which I must disagree with. He said these bills, or several of them, by not requiring convictions, just admissions, will hasten deportations. Yes, they will hasten deportations. But we have a respect for due process in this country. The Miranda decision, going back all the way to 1961, says that you have due process, that something you admit to, just because you admitted it, is not necessarily true, depending how that admission was elicited. And that's why Miranda warnings are given to people. Nothing like that is here. And so what these bills provide for is a total negation of due process and a total negation of justice. That's why, or one of the reasons why. they should be rejected.
No, I appreciate that. And again, I'll just close with this. I think, I mean, we do these, we routinely do these bills in the Rules Committee, bring bills to the floor that, again, are mostly messaging bills, which I think everybody's getting a little bit tired of. And every time there's an opportunity to actually do something substantive, our Republican friends walk away. And Donald Trump said it out loud. That's the part that we've all suspected for a long time, but he said out loud, basically, don't do anything. Don't do anything. Leave me this issue. Let me be able to demagogue on this issue for the remaining of this campaign season. And it may be, a guy with 4 indictments and 91 felony charges might be able to sneak by and become president again. And, and I could do all the things that I didn't do when I was president. And so he said out loud the part that I think we all have known, and that is, you guys don't want to do anything.
We
And
too
I'm
far
tired of it.
away
American
from our
people are
start.
tired of it.
So I'm gonna let it play a little longer.
Frankly, it's just sad. And
Yeah,
I hope, I know.
Good thing you didn't
I'm hoping
walk
we
in
get
here,
to the point
flash
where
me your hoodies.
we're serious, not just about
More followers
this
out of
issue,
that.
but about a whole bunch of other issues that quite frankly
Damn
have been
bad luck.
neglected by this Republican majority that, again, has the worst record of accomplishment of any Congress in history.
As far as I'm concerned,
So anyway,
for the most part, as long as these bastards are tied
Thanks,
up,
gentlemen.
and can't
Gentlemen,
pass
yields
stupid
back to
ass
the gentleman
laws,
from Minnesota is
I'm
recognized.
fine with the shit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I think we've
Oh, God. this
somehow
is New
strayed
Mexico
from
should
the,
get it.
from what's really going on in
They
these
shouldn't
bills.
have
And so
lists.
Chairman
New Mexico
McClintock, I
should
just
have
was
lists.
wondering if you could maybe just answer a series of questions. Is it lawful for a U.S. citizen to evade the pursuit of law enforcement?
No.
Is there penalty for a U.S. citizen who
Yes.
evades? Is it lawful for a
New
U.S.
Mexico should
citizen to
come
drive under the influence of
list.
alcohol?
No,
And it's painful.
And
That's all I
are there
got.
penalties
of course.
I was
What about
listening to it
identity
on my way
fraud?
home
Same.
and
a
penalties?
little bit before I left work, so I got to catch up.
And I think that
Friday.
makes my
It's
point
all
that I am
for
just,
free.
I fail to see what my colleagues who are raising concerns with these bills. At a minimum, it's equally applying the laws to
Feel assaulted.
aliens.
Do that with some
With,
loot.
with this difference, and I think the ranking member would hasten to point this out.
I like that shit.
Under these bills,
I don't wanna
with
watch it
respect
right
to
now.
illegal
What are you
immigrants,
thinking about your hair?
it can, the deportation, the inadmissibility can be triggered.
Why don't you get rid of all the
Simply
red?
by their admitting
I look
to
like
the crime.
Freddy
Now,
Dracula if I do that.
this is not unprecedented
Get rid of all
by
the
a
red, I'll
long shot.
kill.
There are a large series
It is
of
higher.
offenses where this is already applicable to illegal immigrants. For example, an alien can be removed for overstaying his visa, violating his non-immigrant status or condition of entry, smuggling aliens, committing marriage fraud, being a drug user or a drug addict, falsely claiming U.S. citizenship, or engaging in espionage. None of those requires a conviction if there is an admission. And the admission terms are very strict. For 80 years, the Board of Immigration Appeals has provided protections for aliens whose removability and admissibility is based on such an admission. Under the precedent, to be considered an admission, the alien's admission must be explicit, unequivocal, and unqualified. The Department of Homeland Security then bears the burden to show by
Run
clear and
gun, what's
convincing
up,
evidence
brother?
that the
Vanessa
statement
Kitty,
meets
what's
that
up, my sister?
requirement for removability purposes. And even then, the immigration judge would have to find that this admission fits
Welcome
within
to
the
the
relevant
shit
statutes,
show, as
and the admission is based on reasonable, substantial, and probative evidence. So it's a very high standard, but
You're doing sick,
it's
Vanessa. You ain't
one that is
supposed to be
currently
sick.
lacking in the law.
You're supposed to be
and
doing
would
leather
expedite
work,
the removal
building
of those who meet that criteria
schools and
without
all the
going
other
through
stuff.
many, many years of legal process. The irony is this. The Democrats want us to
Seen
take the
Vanessa.
word of illegal
That's
aliens
badass.
when they approach a border patrol officer as
You
to
have.
their name, their identity, their country of origin. We're supposed to take the word for all of that. But the Democrats won't take their word when they.
When Red run? Hell
these
yeah.
Crimes in the United States. Go figure.
Dude, when I
I
get
appreciate
another
that
grill
clarification.
fixed up, I
And,
gotta do
and
a stream where we do
these just
both.
make sense to me.
I got
mean,
to.
these are bills that are common sense bills.
I'm gonna have to
And
haul
so
it
I
out tomorrow.
appreciate that. Yeah.
Hammered while we-
And I appreciate that you brought them forward because I'm sure, I'm assuming that the American public already thinks this is happening.
Which up?
And the fact that it's not is a problem. And so I appreciate you
pick
that
that
you
all
brought these
up
forward.
in
Did you
your
have something
boy?
else to add?
I
Or?
was just to say they're common sense unless
Your toys
you
up,
are
go put 'em in the
deliberately
box.
attempting to admit
I know,
millions
just
of
a little
illegal
more.
immigrants into the country. And that appears to be the policy. And I do agree with Mr. McGovern. We are at a loggerheads as a government. Ultimately, this is not going to be fixed with laws that won't be signed and won't be enforced if they are
It's in a
signed.
rubber.
It's going to be fixed by the American people deciding whether they want to continue down this path. This ultimately is in their
Pain in the
hands.
dick, actually.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Chair, thanks, gentlelady. Gentlelady yields back. Gentlelady from Pennsylvania. is
Well, get
recognized.
well soon, Vanessa.
Thank you, and I'd first yield to Mr.
Well,
McGovern.
I'm just a little confused by that last statement. You say this is not going to be fixed with laws. What the hell are we doing here then?
We are laying the foundation for an administration that will enforce these laws and strengthening their hand and strengthening their hand to do
Who's been indicted 4
so.
times on 91 felony counts?
I can't foresee the future, but I can
I
tell
mean,
you this.
the guy who just has been forced to pay $85 million for defaming a woman he sexually abused. I mean, that's who you, I mean, come on. I mean, this is, then wait till, then go out and campaign for this guy, and maybe he wins, and then, you know, if
Well,
law's
I mean,
not gonna make any difference, why are we here?
Whoever the Republican and Democratic nominees are, this is going to be the question that the American people are going to have
I
to
just-
settle at the ballot box.
I just, when you say
We
the
need a
laws don't
Senate-
matter here, then we're
We
here
need
doing
a
this.
Senate that is
We're
just as
wasting our time, but
devoted.
that's what you think.
We need a Senate that is just as devoted to enforcing our immigration laws as the previous president was, as this House is.
That's like
And we need a president with the resolve to secure our borders and defend our country, which is something
Well, if
we
this is an
presently
important, if
lack.
this is an important issue that we need to act now, and I'm just curious how my friends can defend the former president who was saying, do nothing. Do we need a campaign issue?
We invite
But,
you,
Mr.
we
Neville, you
invite
had
you to join us.
I want to, first of all, a couple of things. First of all, these bills deal with, for the most part, with legal immigrants, not illegal. Let's get that straight. For the most part, they deal with legal immigrants.
Get rid of all.
Second of all,
Cool.
I was not surprised. I was pleased at his honesty that Mr. McClintock a moment ago said that the whole purpose of these bills is his campaign rhetoric.
AR, what's up?
Yes, you did.
How's it
You
going?
said that we're here to present things to the American public, not to pass laws. I'd also point out,
With all respect,
I'd also
I
point
said
out,
we
I
were laying
had
the
to be-
groundwork
I'd
for an
also-
administration that will actually enforce the laws.
okay, which is another way of saying it's a campaign issue. To lay the groundwork for an administration who will actually enforce the laws, to lay the groundwork for another administration, which is to say these bills are intended solely to be a campaign issue. I'd also
These
point out
bills
that-
are intended to be enforced by someone who wants to
Thank you,
protect
member.
the border. You Humpty
I like
Dumpty
the first one
looking.
better.
It'll be. The former
AR
president
came in, I'll watch my language for
who
a second.
said we shouldn't pass any
For a second,
legislation,
AR. I ain't saying
no
it's
matter
my
what it
fault.
says, on immigration, so that you can have an issue.
Because AR is just a good dude. He
He has been indicted on 91 counts. He's been convicted of what the judge
He's
called
like the
rape.
level-headed dude, goes over
He's a
reloaded,
convicted rapist.
freaking serious knowledge base on stuff
And
like
that
that. I'm more the snap out, freak
hard to
out
bear for
kind of
someone
guy.
who wants to be the next president of the United States.
Well, I appreciate that, and I thank the gentlelady for yielding.
Thank you. I am disappointed, but not really surprised, that House Republicans have chosen to waste
Every
more
once in a while, I
this
can
week
keep thing right
with a
around.
package of
PG.
messaging bills that do pretty much nothing to
I don't
change
always
the
go
law
right to
or
that.
the status quo with
Our
respect to
bless rate.
immigration at our southern border. Despite all their bluster and dramatic visits to the Rio Grande, they've shown time and time again, they're not really interested in fixing problems for the American people. They only want to campaign on them.
Of
House
course, I'll
Republicans
get
have
live, brother.
rejected, as Mr.
I was
Nadler
listening
said,
to
the
it before I
president's
started
request
this live.
for supplemental
And
border
this was just a
security
pop-up
funding.
live.
House
I wasn't
Republicans have
planning on going
rejected
live.
serious
It was
negotiations
killing me.
and common
So
sense
I figured I'd
policy
share it with the rest of the
solutions
class.
to address responsible and effective
Why
border
do I have to keep
management,
all this
the
pain to
immigration
myself?
courts, the root causes of migration, and functioning legal pathways to citizenship. And now, as House Republicans waste time by bringing up these redundant messaging bills, they're rejecting a bipartisan
Dude, you gotta watch Redhead.
bipartisan
Warsaw.
immigration bill
Dangerous.
that Senate Democrats,
Warsaw said his
Republicans,
first high school
and the
crush
Biden
was Redhead.
administration have
Yeah,
worked
watch it.
on
They're
for
dangerous.
months. They're refusing to even consider that bipartisan bill because their party leader,
Just because you
Donald Trump,
dyed the tip
told them
black
that he wants
doesn't
to
mean you
campaign
ain't
on
Redhead.
the issue. And that fixing some of the problems at the
I
border
haven't
would
seen yours.
be
You
a
know, you
win
died yet.
for President Biden and therefore bad for the Trump campaign. They said the bipartisan bill is dead on arrival
Toe hair,
in the
but-
House before they even saw the changes. And therein lies
Wow.
the problem, isn't it? Our constituents want us to work together to get wins
Keep telling y'all,
for
I'm
the
gonna
American
just
people.
man.
But when one party would rather campaign and complain
If
about
your wife
problems
has toe hair,
than
just pull.
solve them, the American people lose. We know the issues at the border
gonna get your
require
ass
serious
beat, but it's worth
solutions. And the bills that House Republicans have brought before us today are
Like
not
running up
serious
to a grizzly
and
bear,
in fact
looking at bitch
have
with a
nothing
sharp
new
stick.
in terms of solutions at the border. Mr. Nadler, would you agree that by
You'll
and large,
pancake it,
these
me.
bills duplicate existing law regarding deportation and who should be
Do I fix
excluded?
bad pancake?
They do indeed duplicate, as I said in my opening
Well, I
statement.
don't have pancakes.
By and large, they duplicate existing law. They worsen due process
I
on
could
some
fucking
things, but
kill
by and large,
pancakes.
They completely duplicate existing law.
So am I correct that non-citizens can already be deported if they are convicted of fleeing border patrol or committing social security fraud?
Absolutely.
And am I also correct that members of Hamas, which the U.S. has rightly already declared a foreign terrorist organization, are already ineligible for
Well,
admission
again,
to
you
the United
you
States?
you have a portfolio, brother.
So
I'll give
while
you
these
that one.
bills provide an
I can't say
opportunity
I
for my
haven't been there,
colleagues
though.
to thump their chest and pretend they're doing something to address border security,
Ten chicks
they
will
don't
get
really
you knifed in the
change
neck
the
over
status
damn
quo
near
at the border
nothing.
at all, do
I
they?
will say
They don't
that.
change the status quo at the border at all. They do with
So
respect to
Koreans.
some legal immigrants, take away due process rights.
And just straight out
They're
Mexicans.
accused of things like drunk driving or other.
Let everybody
And as
know.
I said, because of the laws of various states, someone who is asleep, inebriated in his own car, in his own driveway, under this bill would be deported.
Okay, so there are actual pre-existing instances that are causing the objections to these.
Well, I used to have jet black
Okay,
hair and a
thank you. I
jet
yield
black
back.
beard, and then I started paying attention to stupid shit.
Chair, thanks, agenda.
Guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, yields back. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
Now I share it with
Well,
all
thanks, the
y'all.
chairman.
I can't be the
I
only
just
one.
find it interesting on this DUI issue. We had this debate about whether a car should be able to disable somebody who's driving,
actually-
whether the dashboard could judge whether somebody should be convicted of a DUI and therefore be stopped by the side of the road. And I offered an amendment a few weeks ago. Only 2 Democrats
was
voted for
asking
that,
whether you were
for
Scottish
for
or
due
Irish.
process, if you will, if not disabling somebody's vehicle just because the electronics
Irish,
of the
a
person
lot of
may
Hungarian.
be inebriated. But with that said, Mr. McClintock, is there anything
background-
said here recently that you think needs to be clarified or elaborated on or maybe
I think much has been,
countermanded?
but the ranking member just made the point that
Actually, I do have some
duplicative of
It
existing
comes from
laws,
Scott,
that people
comes
who are
from Irish,
convicted of drunk
Jewish,
driving are already deportable.
Western,
That part is true. but
European
again,
Jewish.
This
I'm a
also
mutt
would add an
from
admission
the fucking ground up.
of that. But more to the point, in many cases, even when convicted,
Yeah.
they're not.
Hungarians are some more
and
people
not
that will,
deportable. In
damn
fact,
sure
at
get a
least the
fight.
U.S. Courts of Appeal for the 7th Circuit, 9th Circuit, 11th
So-
Circuit, and potentially in the 4th and 10th circuits
Here.
have said that Social Security fraud offenses, for example, do not carry immigration consequences. In one case, the Ninth Circuit determined an illegal
Yeah,
aliens
well,
fraud conviction did not
that comes down to
carry,
how do you tell a
immigration
French tank?
consequences because it was not
It's got
a
3 gears
crime
in
involving
reverse
moral
and
purpose.
1 in forward in case
This
something
sets
sneaks up
this
behind
right,
it.
clarifies it. If you steal an American Social Security number, we are going to show you.
That
the
whole,
number.
Thank you very much. So they're not
yeah.
duplicative or
well, you're wrong,
redundant.
brother.
There may be some things that are
I'll let you
clarified by
bring us some
these.
cheers.
And again,
Serious
these are the
table.
same criteria that already exist for a wide range of immigration violations, which I just read to you.
All right, thank you, Mr. McClintock. I yield back.
There's a huge part of
Gentleman yields back,
my
Chair. Thanks, the gentleman.
lineage
The
that
lady
comes
from
from
New
I think,
Mexico is
Scotland,
recognized.
some from
Thank you,
England,
Mr. Chair.
some from
You know, I share the same
from Europe,
frustration as my
Western
colleagues
Europe,
up
all
here.
that
It's like,
shit.
here we
I'm-
go
like I
again.
said, I'm a straight out.
A reek of Republican futility. This Congress,
If
as
I
we
could
say
pull off
over
a
and over
Scottish
again, is the
fucking
least
accent.
productive Congress since the Depression. And given some of the laws that they keep putting
Well,
before
if
us,
you could pull off
thank
the
heaven
Scottish
for
accent,
them.
I wouldn't be on the
And why?
live stream. So
Because what we
yeah.
keep seeing in this Rules Committee and on the floor of the House is what I like to, I'm trying to figure out, what is it? And it is that there is a constant attempt to foment
Oh, this is
anger,
Lispy chick.
division, acrimony.
Yeah, this
They
is
have
Lispy chick.
division, but no vision. Because if they had vision, they'd actually want to try to solve the problems that we have. We don't have an open border. Our ranking member just talked about the numbers, the thousands and thousands and tens of thousands that are incarcerated, that are deported on a regular basis. And Mr. McClintock, in your presentations, you've talked about cartels. These bills have nothing to do with the cartels, but I would assume you would be, given your concern about this, in favor of vital supplemental requests. which we're not going to even hear on the floor, I would imagine.
Yeah,
But
champion,
I'm
yeah, she's
assuming you
definitely
would be
special.
in favor
I
of
ain't just talking
1,000
about
additional
her.
CBP field officers to help staff our ports of entry.
Dude, don't
No,
put it just
I
like
would
in a mirror.
assume
I don't know which
That
way
you'd
to
be in
fucking.
favor of $23.2 million for the DEA.
I was pointing at
We
Liz.
can do more around
Slap
fentanyl
me on
tracing and
stream.
enforcement.
Evidence.
Another
Uses
$1.4
people.
billion for our shelter and services programs. We could address these things. These are things I think actually make a difference. But none of the bills we're seeing here today actually do this.
Yes.
Instead, as we're hearing, again, there is an effort
I told you.
to actually address the border crisis. I'm not sure I'm in favor of it because we haven't actually seen what it looks like.
He's coming.
But
Bypass Megan.
we've already seen on the House side
So he came
that
today and he was cheating.
it's being killed. Why? Because Trump has said, kill it.
You
It's better
fucking
for
think?
me politically if you kill this deal, and I will happily take
Way
the
more
blame for it.
complicated.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter into the record an article titled GOP.
You
Senator
are like
vote.
putting
It is
together a
quote,
fucking
immoral,
chicken
close
puzzle
quote,
out of
kill the
corn.
border deal
I'll
to
give
help
you
save-
that one.
Fucking nuts.
Objections ordered.
That off the top of my head, which is.
You know, it is striking what's in this. Senator Tom
It
Tillis,
kinda goes back
who
to
we
that,
pointed
Joe.
out is Republican, says,
Okay, so joke time real
it is
fast.
immoral for me to think you look the other way.
We got to do joke time real fast because it just made me think of something. What's up, Rusty? So there's this guy, married to a blonde chick, and I'm going to use blonde here. Ooh, hold on. Married to a blonde chick, and she can't figure out what to do while he's at work, and he decides, well, baby, you kind of like tedious things. Maybe you need to do puzzles. It'll keep you busy all day while I'm at work, and you can do puzzles, and it'll keep you occupied. And she calls him one day, just hysterically crying, and he can't figure out what's going on. Sounds like bloody fucking murder. Well, when he gets home, she's got this box of cornflakes sitting there, and he starts laughing like a motherfucker, and she's about to kill him. She's like, "What? This is the most frustrating thing ever." And he said, "Baby, you're never going to get them cornflakes to look like that chicken." You couldn't keep a straight face.
No.
Yeah, stick with me. I got plenty of life advice.
Oops, queen. That's funny.
She damn sure is, although
Mhm.
I'm a complete idiot most of the time, but I freely admit that most of the time. Back to Lispy Chick. Oh, good God. That is coyote ugly right there.
You need to have a stream where you just tell
Because you
jokes.
think this is a linchpin for president.
If I could remember half the fucking jokes, I know I would.
No, you just need to do talk about
Senator Mitt Romney called the effort to kill the bill.
What's
uncontrolled.
up, man, against the masses?
Appalling.
What's happening, my brother?
He noted that there is an issue at the southern border and
holiday
needs to be
sandwich.
fixed.
He won't put the good stuff on it.
We had
I don't do olives.
Senator Todd Young
I don't do pepper
calling the efforts
cheese,
to disrupt the negotiations as
lettuce,
tragic.
tomato, onion,
Come to
meat
Senator
type of
Tillis
guy.
again, saying it would take courage for
mayo.
members to actually
like I said,
move
I think he
ahead
normally
and
makes my
get
plate.
this done.
When he cooks dinner.
Courage.
I do normally take care
Courage.
of you.
What we keep
God, we
hearing
got evidence.
in this Rules Committee
I know, I'm
and
saying
in
you get
this
sandwich 'cause
Republican
put good stuff
controlled
on
House,
there, but you
So-
normally do.
outrage.
So when you kill me and people are like,
talk about things that then don't get fixed by the bills before us, but sadly not courage. What I think it would take courage to do is if in these bills, we actually did something that made a difference. I see Representative Garcia, who is going to testify about the need to have an amendment to these bills so we could have the Dream and Promise Act.
Huge.
That would take courage to actually do something that Americans want us to do, which is make sure that deferred action for children actually happens so that we could reap the economic benefits
Crazy big.
that these children are providing to our country.
two things can be true at the same time. Trust me.
That dream.
I am crazy about you, but goddamn,
Which
you
would be
drive me
actually
crazy.
courage to do something right.
I hear that.
And do something that's consistent with what American people need and is so needed by our economy and is, instead of being immoral, the morally right thing to do. I don't know, Ranking Member, if you have any further thoughts about this or wanted to answer any of the other issues. that were raised.
Hey, Russ,
No, I
I
think
got
we've
one for
gone
you.
through
I
much
got
of
to
it.
pause real
We're
fast.
dealing with
Let's
messaging bill.
see, and we'll ask
Hypocrisy.
this to the entire chat. What do you do when your wife is stumbling around in the front yard? Let's see how many answers we can get. My wife is already flicking me off.
No, not.
That hand may be behind that door frame, but I know what it's doing.
No, I know the answer.
Well, you know the answer. I was asking the chat whether they know the answer. Yeah, what do you do when your wife is stumbling around in the front yard? Well, obviously, you shoot her again. Yeah. Back to Congress.
What is it called when you're covering your wife?
Huh?
What's it called when you're covering your wife?
Oh, yeah, that was another one. What is it called when you come in your wife? Loading the dishwasher. She's the one who told that joke. I don't want to hear it from the rest of you.
With
I spend 99%
a political party
of the time
that
in the
doesn't
summer.
want to solve the problem because it wants the problem for the general election, although various Republican senators, that's not a fair description of them, but it's certainly a fair description
Return her to the
of
kitchen.
our former president and
Is he talking about
apparently
me?
the House Republicans. Not much else that can be said. The specifics of these
I'm about ready
bills
to fight.
I've already criticized.
You're always ready to
The
fight. I don't
specifics
want to
are
hear it.
almost unimportant because we know these bills are going
Have you
nowhere and
guys
they're
voted?
intended to go nowhere.
But more importantly, they actually don't fix the problem that
You
the
get-
larger issues that have been raised today in bold headlines like this is happening, but none of these bills actually do that. There is, and so that's the thing, is that we need to have the kind of courage to recognize that we need to fix the system, to recognize also the
To
economic
recognize.
benefits that would
I
come to
want to
us
hear
if we
her
fix the
say
system.
suffering
We
such
need to
tax.
do as my
It ain't even funny.
colleague mentioned, go in and invest in the countries who are sending migrants up here, because until we do that, we have to stop the flow. We need to help people stay where they would prefer to stay.
Oh, yeah.
which
If
is
she
in
said
their home
rabbit
country.
season,
And with that, I
oh,
know
yeah.
It's rabbit season.
Gentlelady yields back to your thanks.
I want to see
Gentlelady,
her
the
argue
gentleman
over
from New
rabbit
York.
season, duck season with Republicans. That would be fucking hysterical. I wouldn't be able to.
McClintock, you visited our southern border and you've seen firsthand the systematic way that the cartels have managed the trafficking of illegal aliens across our border. Is there a feeling among those crossing our borders illegally that there is little standing in their way to prevent any of them from breaking our laws?
Well, of course not. All they need to do is flag down a border patrol
Yeah, that's
officer and they are
despicable. That's another
guaranteed
one.
admittance
yeah.
into the country, free snacks, free food, free medical care,
You
a
gotta have
ticket
a
anywhere in the
business
country that they want to go. Within 6 months, they're guaranteed a work permit, and they know that when their phony asylum claim is heard many, many years in the future, if they happen to show up for it and it's rejected, and they're ordered deported, that deportation order will not be enforced under this administration. You know, I was listening to Ms. Leisure Fernandez ask, well, we should be putting more and more money as the president requests into it. Well, we were down at the Yuma border last year and met with a large group of Border Patrol officers. You know what
2
they
hours.
told us? For God's sake, don't send more money to this administration because they will simply use it to process people into the country even faster. That's a deliberate policy of this administration. And that's the question, as I said earlier, that can only be answered by the American people. Now, the Democrats keep criticizing this is the least productive session. We just talk and talk and talk about this crisis. We waste time talking about this crisis. We pass bills out of the House, well-structured, well-considered bills that will strengthen the hand of a president who wishes to enforce the laws. Obviously,
No, I
not.
got your wars. I already know.
But then fall short
There are
in the
a lot
Senate.
of
So why do we even
conservative
try? Now, I want you to contrast that
girls that
to the
are.
last 2 years that the Democrats controlled this House
Those are-
and this mass migration, this mass illegal migration was unleashed by their policies. I was ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee then.
It's cool.
Not a single hearing on the crisis, not a single hearing on the tragedy of the border. We had lots of hearings on how to admit more people into the country. Not a single hearing, not a word from the Democrats to defend our country's borders as they unleashed this onslaught against the people of our nation. And ultimately, the people of our nation are going to have to respond.
Representative McClintock, is there any concern among those that are crossing illegally that their asylum case might be thrown out or they'll be deported back to their country of origin?
Whatsoever.
Again, they know that the odds are very much in favor that they will be able to stay here indefinitely, just as a practical matter. Many of them don't show up for their court dates. In fact, many of them are only given a notice to report rather than a notice to appear, meaning they're released on their own recognizance.
See, this is where I get to the fact, and I'm going to end this in a second or in a minute or two. This is where I get to the fact that people who come here illegally that are criminals, I'll leave it to that are criminals. When we decide whether their asylum claim is good or bad, we ought to spin a wheel. Pow! In whatever country they land on is whatever country they drop them off in. If you're from Paraguay and you end up in Zimbabwe, fuck it. Deal with it. If you're from Zimbabwe and you end up in Brazil, have fun. They have great festivals. But this fucking stupid shit. What's up, Tread? What's happening, brother? Don't you start that with me, man, against the masses. I ain't drinking Bud Light. Those are Keystones, as always. You dirty, meme-making bastard. No, I love you, man. You already know. Yeah. That's why any fucking memes. That dude's put a coyote on my head. He's put a tramp stamp on my back. I have to do a single stream with Man Against the Masses memes with my fucking photoshopped ass in them. I guarantee you it will be well worth it. And I gotta pull all of them off Instagram because that's where he typically sends them. Oh God. Hold on. Can I get IG on this computer? I don't have all my passwords saved. I gotta bring it up on my phone. You dirty slut. No, Man Against the Masses is a dirty slut. I'm telling you, he's a dirty, dirty slut. Hell, where is my IG on my damn phone? I haven't looked at it in so freaking long. There it is. Okay, there's Rich with his crash helmet on. Okay, that ain't the one. Bud Light, you didn't. You did. You dirty hoe. You dirty, dirty hoe. I love you. God, I love you. I showed you the tramp stamp, didn't I? Yeah. I've showed you a couple of them. I seriously do have to do a stream with nothing but Man Against the Masses freaking memes of me. The coyote head, the tramp stamp, all the other stuff. And for those of you who don't know Man Against the Masses, dude is an absolute fucking riot. Well, fine, I'll light another one then. I told a student today, oh my God, they pulled it for class, and it's one of the dudes. You can smell weed pouring out of his car. You can smell it from a long ways off. And a couple of other guys were riding with him, and I just started breaking their balls. And one of them said something. I said, dude, I can tell exactly whether you smoke weed or not by the way you light a cigarette. He went, how? I said,
Oh, it's this.
if you light a cigarette like this and then do this, you smoke weed. If you light a cigarette like this, you may or may not smoke weed, but you can at least smoke a cigarette properly.
What's his face? What the hell are you sending him?
What are you sending me? Oh, that's the Taylor Swift stuff.
That's fucked up. That's not Taylor Swift.
That was, yes, that was the freaking screen from Salty Cracker.
That's fucked
Yes.
up.
Yeah, that was the White House is worried about damn AI stuff with
Send that to me. I'm gonna send that
Taylor
out.
Swift.
I've got to send that
Oh,
out.
well, here, send it yourself because yeah, Salty Cracker used that one earlier today. And yes, I follow my brother, the Salty Cracker. Oh, dude, I can't say that I've ever listened to a single one of her fucking songs. I don't give a rat's ass about Taylor Swift. I honestly don't.
They can then, by the way, use
That's
these
more
documents
circuses
come
while
out
the
of the arrest
fucking
warrant,
country burns down.
for proof of identity on any plane in this country.
Dude, you ain't
is
wrong,
ludicrous,
Paul.
and the American people
I
are
ain't
not
even
awake
saying
to
you're-
the dangers that
you ain't wrong.
it poses. But they know this, and the statistics back them up. And all they
send it?
await is another amnesty, like the one that is rumored to be
You can send it
considered in
out.
the Senate right now, so that will become permanent. Why are they coming? Because they know they'll be admitted and they know they can stay, and that's got to change.
Thank you, Representative McClintock. And finally, our friends across the aisle have spoken at length about how the fraud committed by illegal immigrants using stolen or quote shared
Right, your
social
rainbow
security
right now.
numbers has actually had a benefit of funding critical safety net programs like Social Security and Medicare. To quote Representative Pramila Jayapal in 2018, such illicit activity actually, quote, keeps the Social Security system afloat. Is Social Security truly being kept afloat by the theft of Social Security numbers and other personal information by illegal aliens?
Well, no, and more to the point, we just received testimony in the Immigration Subcommittee the week before last, that calculates that the average net
Dennis,
cost.
do your homework.
This is
I'll be back.
taxes paid minus services demanded. Net cost is about $69,000 per immigrant. Now multiply that times the 5 million that have been allowed into this country under this administration's policies. It was just estimated that New York City schools will be paying $1 billion a year just to educate the illegal immigrants who have been brought as minors into this country this past year. Now that's the same as $1 billion cut to the New York City schools. Now you multiply that by every school in the country, every homeless shelter, every public hospital, and you begin to see the enormous damage that this is doing to our country. And they not only don't care, they're actively promoting it. I have said to folks who've wondered aloud, how could this be happening to our country? Well, the answer is pretty simple. If you voted for the Democrats, this is exactly what you voted for. And if you're surprised by that, you weren't paying any attention, because this is exactly what they promised to do. This is exactly what they have done. And this is exactly what they have defended every single day in this Congress for the last 3 years. And Exhibit A is my good friend from New York.
Well, thank you. And I would like to echo those words to say that I find it insulting to our seniors, and any member of Congress would excuse away blatant crimes against American citizens as somehow helpful to the fiscal future of these programs. I greatly appreciate the work that the House Judiciary Committee has done to bring forward what I believe are targeted fixes to strengthen penalties and deter illegal immigration in those trafficking people across our borders. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Chair thanks the gentleman. The gentleman from Texas was recognized.
This word.
Thank my friend from Texas.
Yeah.
I think the witnesses for being here.
We'll make it through a little bit of chip stuff, then I got to end it.
I don't want to cover stuff that's already been covered, and I apologize.
This is about where we started.
Getting here as fast as I could, but I think, Mr. McClintock, a question for you about the
That's all.
4 bills that are before us. We're dealing here with respect to all 4 of them with individuals who are present in the United States.
Dude, the answer
by
to that is
virtue
always
of
yes.
having come here without papers. Is that correct? No? Is it, what is the classification in all 4 bills of the people we're dealing with here?
Anytime you can expand the way you're doing things, carrying things, yes.
Bills.
Absolutely.
And this very simple reasoning, and that is, if you're a guest in this country, we ask that you obey our laws. And if
Dude,
you
that would be
obey
my
our
plan.
laws, we need to show you the door.
We're dealing with
campaign
non-citizens
slogan is going to be
in all 4.
tar and feathers great.
Are we dealing with LPRs? in each or all of the four?
And I am only here to slow the
permanent
process
residents?
Yeah, I
down, so
believe so,
no
yes.
more.
But they've been given that status by virtue of our efforts as a country to say you can come here,
They are guests in this.
provided that you would follow the laws of this country, correct? Are the people that we're dealing with here with respect to all four of these bills, however, in significant numbers, we're dealing with a lot of people who are here illegally?
Of course,
Here,
well, especially for example, the border chases that are imperiling lives and killing law enforcement officers.
And in most cases, with respect to Social Security fraud,
Oh, yes.
right? By definition.
Yeah, exactly.
So to be clear for the people watching at home, we are moving legislation to try to deal with, in some cases, legal permanent residents or people who are here who have been given legal status by virtue of our desire to be here. But in many cases, dealing with people who are here
Well,
illegally.
As a practical matter, though, we need to make the distinction of the legal immigrant who's come here and obeyed all
Oh, I got hung
laws
up
is an
on it.
exemplary citizen.
Something.
You'll find that they commit far fewer crimes per capita than American citizens do. These are the folks who have obeyed all of our laws. The Democrats love to compare
Yeah, it sucks to
them
be a
and
Biden sport.
confuse them
Yeah.
with illegal immigrants whose very
Especially if
first
you got
act entering this
that
country
brain.
is a misdemeanor, of a federal crime. And so it shouldn't surprise us that.
And remember, guys, all this is happening, just happened today, this evening, this afternoon.
Overwhelmingly to those illegally in this.
As far as
country
this
who have
hearing
already
goes.
demonstrated a disdain and
Yes.
disrespect for. our
Bring
laws.
back dueling.
But to put a finer point on it for the people back
I wanna
home
see
watching,
Joe
this,
Biden try to
we're
put
talking
laws
about
on
individuals
people.
who have been given a status to be in the United
I wanna
States,
see that.
who have then carried out some action that we believe would require either deportation,
find me
inadmissibility,
something
whatever is in the particular
Kind of
statute
what I've been looking at to
that
where
we're
I can
proposing,
go with it.
or
So-
in the lion's share of the numbers.
Go over.
We're talking about people
or
who
I can
came
work
here,
separate.
evading our laws, ignoring our laws to come here, whether it's across the Rio Grande or otherwise, overstaying your visas, right? You came here, violated our laws, overstayed your visas, whatever it is.
I'm a T-Rex.
And you have,
Can't stand
in this one
Goddamn
case, committed Social Security
We
fraud.
have some pretty good stuff.
In another case, whether you're here with legal status or came here illegally, you're
I just
You're
can't see why dudes were.
engaged in support or otherwise engaged with helping
Can't see it.
Hamas in this one particular instance. Or perhaps you have been convicted of DUIs and obviously engaging in high-speed chases with respect to the danger posed to Border Patrol and otherwise. So again, just
Yeah,
for
Chip Roy's up there,
clarification,
brother. Rusty, he is.
this is what we're
definitely
talking
up
about
there.
here.
And-
When the average, I'll finish this, then I'll leave
And he
it open to
does
the
come out
question.
swinging
When the
on a lot
average
of
person
stuff.
that I
Why
represent,
I like him.
if I ask the average person that I represent in the 21st District of Texas in Central Texas, do you think that any of the individuals, any one individual who came here in violation of our laws, whether they felt they had a reasonable claim to some coverage for asylum or some basis for parole or anything else, but they came here, most people in my district, I don't know how your people in your district feel, would say that individual should be removed immediately.
Okay.
That individual should not be present in.
I got to pause, brother Chip, for a second. And let me do my thing, make myself bigger here. This is where we have to deal with the reality where we're at. We have a lot of people that have been brought into this country, some as younger people, some as were born here, you name it. I've worked with a lot of them in the last decade that are really, really good people that don't need to be just kicked out. I don't believe their parents need to be kicked out. But if you lock down the border, which needs to happen before anything else, and then you take all the criminal element, the rapists, the child molesters, the MS-13, the cartel members, and you kick their asses out, then we can deal with who is here that is actually a net benefit for our society. Because there are a lot of people that came here illegally, either through their own actions or through the actions of their parents, that are a net benefit to society, to our society. I have no problems with those people at all. Back to the whole flip a fucking spin wheel and see where we drop them off. Yes, take the criminal element that is here and go drop them off in Zimbabwe, anywhere they didn't come from. If you came from Mexico, hey, you get to go to fucking Ecuador. If you're from Ecuador, here's Zimbabwe, or Chad or some other country. Keep the ones that are a net benefit and get rid of the ones that aren't. But you have to lock down the fucking border first before you can control that. That's what drives me crazy with this whole thing, where I say Republicans are making money off the people that are here for the cheap labor. Democrats want the cheap votes, and we're just stuck in this fucking spin cycle. And that's all it's ever going to be until you control the fucking borders. And it really is that simple. Your average dude on a construction site in bumfuck wherever can understand this. But they play these games with us, and you got all these douchebags running around talking about, oh, Texas is breaking federal law. Cite me the code that Texas is breaking when they say they are going to enforce immigration law. Nobody can cite me that code because it's not fucking there. Don't believe me? Run way up in the chat. There are two things I posted. One about the supremacy clause from the 10th Amendment Center. Another one from a historian who is citing historical fact on what's going on right now. And you'll see these mainstream media pricks and all these people run around parroting their points are absolutely full of shit. I'm so done with fucking stupid people at this point, in between gun laws and immigration and all the other stuff. It's just not even fucking funny. I'm going to let this play for another little bit, and then we're going to bounce. As soon as I hit about the time where we got into it, I'm going to roll
in
out.
the United States at all. But here we're talking about, at least for that class of individuals, we're talking about, again, consequences for Social Security frauds. In other words, we're layering on something on top of that which most average Americans would say we should be removing, deporting, not having them in the United States at all. And then we're coming in and saying on top of that, oh, by the way, I mean, if you commit Social Security fraud, you really shouldn't be.
Be rainbow words, right?
I mean, I'm just trying to put in perspective kind of the absurdity of the spectrum on which we find ourselves.
Well,
I wonder if the gentleman might comment.
well, it's pretty simple, actually. These bills are applying to drunk drivers, ID thieves.
Dude, I never expect anybody to give me thumbs up. So
Exactly the same.
I get 4 in a
provision
stream. I'm cool.
That we already apply for visa overstays, violating of non-immigrant status or condition of entry.
Hell, give me a
smuggling
thumbs down.
aliens,
Oh.
Committing a marriage fraud, being a drug user or a drug addict, falsely claiming U.S. citizenship, engaging in espionage. We're simply applying the same provisions that apply to aliens who have violated those laws to drunk drivers, ID thieves, and terrorists. I don't think that's too much to ask, but the Democrats do, and that tells us a great deal about the attitudes of the parties on this issue.
So we've got 4 bills here. High-speed chases with respect to Border Patrol agents, protecting ourselves from DUIs, i.e. people who are committing acts of driving under influence or have committed such an act.
Usually pretty good.
Engaging in Social Security fraud, a fairly significant problem
Yes,
for
I
people to
have
take
my
someone's
Social
identity and
Security
steal their
number
hardworking contribution
No
to Social
fun.
Security. And then no benefits, i.e. you shouldn't be here if you're, I don't know,
I got where
working
you're
with
going.
terrorists like Hamas who endanger the American people and endanger our friends in Israel. So that's the position that we're laying forward in these 4 measures. Is that correct? I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back. Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Are there any other members that have questions for this panel? If not, thank you very much for appearing before us today, and the witnesses are.
I think, yeah, let me stop this here because I think that's about where I got into it today. And I'm fixing to, hold on, let me get myself back to the right place here. So yeah, I'm going to end it here, guys. I listened to that on the way home, a little bit at work, a little bit on the way home, and then just decided I was going to listen to it once I got home and share it with you guys. The one thing you can take from this entire hearing is none of these people, for the most part, there are a couple, but none of these people, for the most part, want to do anything about the problem at all. They have their own vested interest in this whole thing. If they didn't have their own vested interest in this whole thing, they would shut down the border. They would revamp our immigration system to where we can get more people in here that we want in here. We can deport more people that we don't want, and people that were kind of here in the middle, what they call dreamers and all that. We can find them a pathway to become citizens. I will take most of those people over your raving left freaking blue-haired lunatic any day of the damn week. Any day of the week. Because these people understand what tyrannical government actually is. And that will throw a lot of people off of me. It is what it is, man. This is where we're at. We've had plenty of border deals before to where I think it was under Reagan. You had a big amnesty thing come through, and they never fixed the border. That has to come first. That has to come before anything else. And anybody who lies to you and says that doesn't have to come first is a moron. Either that or they just flat out lying to you. Again, I get back to it. There are plenty of people that come into this country that love our freedom more than your average American does. I say we trade. We swap them. You're from wherever in Africa and you respect freedom. Okay, we're going to send 3 liberals, white or otherwise, to your country. They can go live underneath that government. You came here from South America underneath a tyrannical government, Venezuela, whatever. Okay, you get here, we send 3 liberals back to your place because they love socialism so damn much. Let's let them go live underneath it.
You got a piece of paper for Monkey? About her rainbow words?
Give me a sec. Let me pull some paper for the kiddo, and then we're gonna end this one. I almost don't know whether I got any more paper left in this notebook in between fractions and trig and everything else. And apparently notes on gun control laws and
Never take a break, do
yeah, well, in between work and this, no, I don't really take a break. Unfortunately.
All a choice.
What?
Since day one, President Biden has systematically dismantled policies to.
Hey, I didn't hit nothing. How'd you start back there? I'll tell you what, anyway, let me end this, guys, and see if I can get my daughter squared away and finish cooking dinner and all that. But I wanted you guys to see that if you wanted to see it, just to see kind of where things are sitting these days with the BS, which has always been going on. It's been going on forever. But maybe some people are newer to it than others and haven't seen it as much. So, yeah, I wanted to share that out. And I am. I'm going to go chill out. I'm going to fix dinner for the kiddos and finish cooking and stuff like that. I got to get them in bed a little bit. But any of you guys, thanks for showing up. Thanks for watching. if you go back up in the chat, hold on, I'll post it again real fast. I think I've still got it up. Hold on, this is, let me post this. So this is from a history professor that I actually know, who is a really sharp dude, explaining the supremacy clause, which is what some of these jackasses are citing when it comes to Texas and the border right now. And they have no idea whatsoever what they're talking about. And it fucking shows, to say the least. And then where was the other one? Let me post another one. That was Brian McClanahan. Where's the other one? It's in my history. Hold on, I'm looking. Give me a sec. All right, there's McClanahan. Oh, God, where is it? There's a 10th Amendment Center. I watched them today. Slide back up. Why is it not showing up in my history? That's the Rules Committee. That's what I started watching. Here it is. So this is the 10th Amendment Center, and if you're not following them, you need to follow them. Because they really get into the Constitution, they get into the founders' writings, and they really get deep into the woods. But you need to get deep in the woods to understand what's going on right now, whether it's with gun laws, whether it's going on with border, all that. So check out those 2 videos when you get time. Follow these guys if you like what you see, because they are extremely sharp when it comes to Constitution, our rights, history, you name it. But yeah, give them a follow, give them a listen, and check them out. And understand, man, we are being played in the biggest psychological game that, hell, I'm 47 since I've been alive. And there are a few things that match that, when we got into Vietnam and others, but it's that playbook has continued, and it's just this constant rinse and repeat, and they just keep turning the spin cycle on higher and higher and higher to where we're at, where we are where we are now. Sorry, I'm trying to read comments, talk at the same time. Doesn't work. One more meme. Oh, hold on. Let me bring up my IG. Oh, you didn't. You did. He's got me sitting next to damn, what's his face? The damn Bud Light dude. Oh, one of these days, man, against the masses, I will get you back. Hold on. What was this one? It's me and the rainbow. I seriously have to do a stream with nothing but Man Against the Masses memes, because he is freaking hysterical. If you guys haven't seen it, it's me sitting on the beanbag chair. Yeah. I've got to do a stream. Oh, that's Dark wearing a diaper. Yeah, we don't want to go there. Dylan Mulvaney, that's who it is. Mulvaney. Took me a minute to remember. My brain tries to cut stuff out. But yeah. And I will get that stream together at some point where we're just going to go through Man Against the Masses making fun of me. And I guarantee you it will be a good time. I love you, brother. Anyway, I'm out, man. I got to go. I got to finish doing cooking and all that kind of cool stuff. So anyway, we'll end it like we always do. You perks be cool. Keep that thing on you at all times. And just realize your government hates you and they're playing you for a fucking fool every second of every goddamn day. Don't even get into the media line. Don't get into the race line. Don't get into the red versus blue line. It's all a game, man. It's all to keep us spread out. It's all to keep us fighting against one another and not paying attention to what the hell these people are doing. I love each and every one of you guys. You guys take care. Take care of the fam. Love on everybody. Have a good night. And I'm out. Y'all take them easy, perps.